Welcome to the Bayesian Conspiracy. I'm Eneasz Brodsky.
I'm Steven Zuber.
I'm Jess Dickey.
And today we finally got into that feedback episode that we keep talking about.
We're sorry.
Want to just jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. At the top of my list here, I've got, I guess recording bi-weekly makes things pass really fast, or really long time ago, but something like 2 months ago, Sailor Vulcan was chatting with us about the intellectual dark web and my dismissive mockery of it. So I read the Slate Star Codex post that they posted, and I liked it. I thought it was really interesting.
What was the post?
It was Slate Star Codex specifically talking about the phenomena of the intellectual dark web and if it's a thing that provides value or is anything like that. I think I talked about this a little bit before. Like, my position on it is that I never really took the brand that seriously.
Oh, wait, this is the intellectual dark web, right?
What did I say?
Well, you were just saying dark web in general.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
no.
thank you, yeah.
Okay, I'm following you now. Go on.
Yeah, no, that was good clarification.
And people are like, why are they talking about drugs and child porn?
The IDW, which almost takes as long to say as intellectual dark web.
Right.
That is one more syllable, I think.
I don't think that the W is just a shitty name for a letter.
Yeah.
Because first of all, it's not a W. And second of all, so many syllables. Every other letter is like the sound that it makes, right? We should I seriously am advocating for calling the W way instead from now on.
Wha.
Or wha. Yeah, wha works too. Wha or way.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Sometimes I just go with dubs because people know
that works.
Yeah.
Dubs. All right.
I like that one, actually.
ID dub.
ID dubs. I can't remember what I said before because I said it's been a couple months, but my dismissal of like the brand was sort of just like, off the cuff. And on Sam Harris's most recent AMA on his podcast, he said that he was never a big fan of like the name or anything. He doesn't like labels, period. But no, I think that there's definitely value to. Maybe we did talk about this. I think we talked about my response to the criticism, but what we didn't talk about is this SSE post because I pulled out a quote that is still here in our notes. So, from the post was, quote, "My position, if you decide not to hire somebody based on any characteristic not related to job performance, very broadly defined, including things like company fit, fun to work with, etc., you're trying to exclude people. If you make up a really strained, dumb argument for why some characteristic relates to job performance when it obviously doesn't, communist actors could hold a revolution on set, making the set unsafe for other employees or something, then you're trying to exclude people and lying about it."
Is this the same post that where he observed that there's like green and blue or red and blue fast food restaurants now? Like Chick-fil-A is obviously very unblue.
Yeah.
Like a lot of blue friends will not go there and look at you side-eyed if you do.
Huh. I haven't read the post in a while, but I don't remember that being in there. And that's an interesting observation. I hadn't actually heard that or remembered it. Huh.
He kind of pointed out there's almost like two worlds forming and, you can't interact with each other, which is kind of dumb because sometimes you just want a chicken sandwich and you shouldn't have to worry about if they're on the right team or not. And it basically just duplicates the economy, right? It makes everything half as large and duplicated.
Yeah, my thing on Chick-fil-A in particular was when I learned about the CEO giving money to anti-gay marriage charities or whatever, lobbyists or whatever, I stopped going there. And then when gay marriage became legalized, I started going there again.
Okay, because you figured he'd lost?
He's already lost. They're not reversing that decision, I guess. Unless that starts looking like it's going to happen, then I'll stop giving him whatever 1 cent every time I buy a thing. But I go to Chick-fil-A 10 times a year, maybe, probably less, so they're not getting much from me anyway. But
I wonder why they draw the line at the CEO, though. Like, if 90% of the employees of Chick-fil-A all donated to a particular cause that you hate, such as the Society for Kicking Puppies or something, would people who like puppies then have to boycott them?
Or is it easier to get data on one person? And let's be honest, the people who work for Chick-fil-A don't make enough money to give to charity. So,
well, okay. I mean, if they're all religious, then they at least make enough money to give to their church.
I don't think
in theory.
Do. The only person I knew who ever worked there, I knew in college, and she wasn't religious.
I knew someone who worked there who said that. I mean, you didn't have to be religious to work there, obviously, but like there was sort of an atmosphere, and at least the one she worked at, where people would be like, "Oh, you don't go to church? Okay, then."
Yeah, there's definitely an atmosphere. When I go there, I feel slightly uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
It's like weird because like everyone's really friendly too. Yeah. But like I feel like it's this like we're gonna be really friendly to you if you're in our in group.
So you're not in their in group, and yet they're still really friendly to you.
Yeah, but if I go there with my girlfriend and like have a buzz cut or something, then like they're not going to be as friendly. But maybe I'm not, and I'm just like over interpreting based on my own prejudices against people. So like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like
My interpretation of it is, I never go inside. I go through the drive-thru, and they're always nice on the radio and stuff, or whatever the headset. The other thing is that I'm guessing is that no one there, like if you ever worked a minimum wage job, like at a fast food place or anything like that, you don't have enough energy to give one shit about who you're talking to. Like,
you probably don't. They like the people at Chick-fil-A seem like really like they have a culture of.
They seem peppy. I don't know how they do it.
Like really good customer service, which is nice, but then it also makes me uncomfortable.
You guys are being too nice. What's the catch?
Yeah, no, that's I think that's the feeling I'm describing. I'm like, what's going on here? Everyone's really happy and they're working at a fast food restaurant.
I don't know how they do it. Maybe they pay well. Maybe they can afford to give to anti-gay charity. I have no idea.
I think they do pay better than average. No, don't quote me on that.
Yeah, we can.
So in that case, we should be supporting Chick-fil-A because they're helping overthrow the capitalist regime.
See, that's the thing. Like, I think this is all signaling stuff. If you looked at all the CEOs of different companies and like boycotted them based on terrible things they believed, I feel like you wouldn't be able to shop anywhere.
Also, you would have to boycott everyone because everyone in the world has at least one thing they disagree with you on.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I'm sure me and Steven have one thing that I'm like, oh, you believe that thing? You can't be my friend anymore.
We'll have to find that.
Yeah, okay.
But to be clear, I wasn't talking about fast food stuff. And honestly, I wish I'd reread the post because I don't remember really the full context of this. I've got the link somewhere, but it's not readily available, so we'll just power through. Basically, the post was saying that it's exclusion if you don't hire somebody based on criteria that is unrelated to their fit for the job, their fitness for the job. And I think you and I talked about this a bit. I think I threw it into like the censorship episode.
Yeah, I have something to say about that too, but it's going to be maybe a derailment. So like,
I mean, it's the feedback episode. Derailment is what we're all about.
That's what we're here for. But I'll power through just the bold question I've got here at the end.
Yeah, that's
like,
what I wanted to give
extreme
you.
case, does this apply to like literally Nazis? So I use the example of like bringing someone into your house, and that's maybe a little different than working at your store. If you owned a mom and pop shop and you needed 10 people to staff it, I feel like it'd be hard for me not to be prejudiced against people. Well, I guess if they had a blatant swastika tattoo, they'd probably have that out while they're on the shift, and that would scare people away. So that's a good reason that actually does relate to the job. But
Yeah.
I don't know, if they just came into the MAGA hat and the workplace mandated a certain like kind of hair catching hat or something, so they'd be wearing that instead of their MAGA one. I don't know. You might be like one might be more inclined to hire people that they more ideologically get along with, and that's also, I guess, company fitness.
somewhat like, yeah, you're allowed to choose employees. That's basically what I was going to say. A lot of places, I think, like, aside from maybe strict scientific or like software engineering jobs, use behavioral questions only on job tests now.
The software job I worked at definitely did a behavioral component on the application and interview process that I did. And I can attest that everybody I spoke to there that I ever came up with was at least on the left side of center.
Yeah.
On most things.
But you're in Denver.
That's true. But I mean, this is kind of a swing state. There's people.
Not in, I mean, sure there is, but in Denver proper, most people are left.
Oh, fair
Denver's
enough.
pretty blue.
Yeah.
That's part of why I moved here.
Oh, well, that's what I get for never going outside. So, all right. Well, Sailor Vulcan let you down. I had this all like ready to talk about, and I kind of forgot the full context. Other than,
Well, we haven't answered, does this apply to Nazis, though?
yeah, but I guess there's not really a good like I said. I think the thing is that
Like, what if someone
like-
is friendly, provides good customer service, there's no outward sign that he's a Nazi? I mean, he's blonde and blue-eyed, but so are a lot of non-Nazis, right? And you just find out that when he goes home, he likes to read Mein Kampf, and he's like, man, this country would be so much better off if we could get rid of all the Jews.
The caveat here that Scott gave, which I think is really important, is that any characteristic related to job performance, broadly defined, including things like company fit and fun to work with. Mm-hmm. If you're that guy who won't shut up about how the Earth is flat or something every time that someone says like, look at the sunset or something, right? Like,
Yeah.
whatever. That's not good company fit.
Yeah.
And so, like to the extent that you're the only person in the office who like really wishes all of your Jewish coworkers would die, then like, if that belief ever came out, then it's like, look, you're not a good fit for the company. It has nothing to do with you. Well, it has everything to do with you as a person.
Yeah,
but more to. It's not you. It's me. I don't want some genocidal maniac in my store. So you've got to go.
Yeah. But
if you
never
never
don't
knew
say
about
it,
it,
yeah.
then I mean, I guess.
If you never knew about it, you'd never know about it.
Well, not if you
Exactly,
never
yeah.
knew about it, but like if he never brought it up, you could still, hire someone to go dig into his Facebook profile and find out what his views are, or interview his friends if you really wanted to.
You'd have to do that to every employee, and that's awful.
First of all, yeah, that's
Of course,
awful.
like I think
and-
companies do that
Getting a
already.
security.
Oh,
clearance.
there's companies that demand that you give them your Facebook password before they'll hire you.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Garbage
fuck, that's not a
companies.
company I'd ever work for because you can eat all of my ass.
Yeah.
But not everyone has that luxury, first of all. And also, should it matter in that case? Like, I kind of don't think it should.
Yeah, I kind of, when you first asked the question, was like, I think I'd still hire him as long as he wasn't actively harassing any of the other like coworkers, or if it was like a customer service position, you know.
I mean,
Yeah,
more
but
than
then I'm
anything,
just waiting for him to show up at, some MAGA rally. And, not to rail against these people, but whatever. It's 2019. This is what's going on.
All right.
And then, their pictures on the news and be like, oh, look, they're still wearing their Zuber's Pizzeria t-shirt at this rally. Look,
probably
who-
should
look who
not be
hires
wearing the Super's Pizzeria t-shirt.
So,
Yeah.
but that's the thing is like, I think a company that said you can only wear our stuff when engaging in like morally permissible behavior or something, grotesque like that would also be super turn-offing, right?
Yeah.
So it's or like maybe even if they weren't wearing the t-shirt, but when this guy, if they get on a podcast and start spewing a bunch of hate, and then someone like goes at them on Twitter and digs up their profile or something like, oh look,
Isn't this what got James Gunn fired?
Well,
Someone digging up this past
yes,
stuff.
but there's two important differences there,
Okay.
and one's slipping away from me. But the most important thing is that James Gunn is awesome, and what he got in trouble for was bullshit.
This could be an awesome Nazi.
Yeah, and if his
Sort of.
but if his stuff was
I
10
don't
years
know.
old, that's
Yeah.
totally fine. I think
Is that totally fine?
I think so.
Can you go non-genocidal in just 10 years?
Yes.
Okay.
I think,
mean,
you can go non-genocide. You can go from murderous to non-murderous in like a month.
Yeah, okay.
Probably less.
I mean, the thing
We should
I
talk
keep
about
thinking,
the Liam Neeson thing that was going on last month or the month
Oh,
before.
yeah, that was neat.
It was awesome.
The thing I keep thinking about is like, if this was the 50s, you could replace this with, does this apply to atheists? And people would be like, well, that's going too far. We don't want any atheists around in our company. Because, they were godless, society-destroying people.
And don't get me wrong, my impulse is completely to agree with you.
No.
But I think when I'm wearing two different hats, if I'm the person looking for the job, I don't care who my coworkers are as long as they're nice and cool to work with and good at their jobs. If I ran a company, especially a small company that couldn't take a big hit like this, if there were people picketing out in front of my mom and pop shop and nobody could get in past the sign wielding angry mob, then my business shuts down. I lose my livelihood, right? So
Yeah.
This is actually really reminiscent of Peter Singer wrote a great essay probably like 30, 40 years ago called "Is Racial Discrimination Always Arbitrary?" And it had 3 thought experiments in it, and one of them was, I think they're all thought provoking, but one of them was if you ran a restaurant in some racist back hills area in the South or something. Again, not shitting on people from there. It's just this was the thought experiment, and you're not racist, but you realize a lot of your clients are. You would lose business if you hired this black, what do you call it, busboy or something? Waiter, that's the word I was looking for. So is it racist of you not to hire the person? It's hard to, that's the point, is it's hard to say. It's a bit of a head scratcher, because on the one hand, you're not hiring him because he's black, which is well, that sounds like textbook, but it's that's not really why, it's because I'll lose business. And it's well, then you should get up and move to a different part, but that sounds hard to do for almost everybody, right? A lot of people can't just leave their business and their lives and move to a more accepting area. Although unless you can, like Jess.
I mean, but the solution seemed to be pass laws so that they have to hire black people, right?
Yeah, but I think either this was this would have been definitely after that, probably, but maybe it was before it was widely enforced and thought experiment. Rules don't apply. So.
And did the passing of those laws help in those areas?
I have no idea. It's hard to say. I mean, racists aren't going to hire people just because they're assholes anyway, but now if this guy said, hey, look, to his racist patrons, it was the law and I'm okay with it. And then maybe it'd make it feel less racist. Like, oh, this guy's just as good as everybody else or something, right? So, I don't know.
I want to say that stuff really did actually help.
I think certainly some parts of that did. I'm not sure how legitimate the idea of quotas is, if that's actually a thing that people do anymore. I think it's not, although I'm not really sure. And I don't know if there's a law for that. I don't own a business, if that's clear. But it'd be hard to see how it wouldn't have helped. This is, what was this, a Mark Twain quote about how traveling makes you makes you hate strangers less or something, just because it's really easy to hate those those terrible brown people on the other side of the world because they're just the worst, but then you go over there and they're like everybody else because everybody's like everybody else because we're all people. I think it was actually a Siedkowski quote, and this is a rationally adjacent podcast. It sounds appropriate. It was we're all the same car with different shades of paint. It's all of our brains are, barring mutation or damage, are architecturally identical. We're all the same. I mean, on one hand, that sounds like a deepity. It's of course, we've all known that forever. No shit. But it's on the other hand, I don't know. I think he brings it up with the same kind of feeling of why is this even a conversation that anyone's having?
So you've decided that it does apply to Nazis or it doesn't?
I haven't decided.
Okay.
I think
it's in bold, so it keeps jumping out at me every time I look down at my screen.
No, that's fine. I think if I had to give one answer, if I ran a small business, it would be I would have to think of an answer, I guess. But since I don't, I'm cool with my coworkers as long as they don't suck. And
I agree with you. Do you think there's a difference between like a small business and a large institutional corporation, though?
Yeah, because a company that makes $40 million a year can afford to take a PR hit. And
I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. I was going more with like a company that's a large institution doesn't feel very much like a family. It's just a place where you go, slot in, give your units of production, get units of currency in exchange. Whereas a small business is very much more like a social group.
It is. Yeah, that's a good point. I think my personal experience there is weird because in software, you tend to be divided into small teams where like you sit with them and those are the people you work with and you might work in collaboration with other teams, but like that's your family there. So it kind of fostered that both. And then when I was delivering pizzas through college, there definitely was that familial thing. In fact, half of them lived together. So
if someone on your development team had been like a racist, would you have been able to still work with them if they didn't like say it while on the job?
I mean, one of my teammates was low-key pretty racist, and it annoyed me, but not really. I mean, also his incompetence at his job bugged me too. So,
Or how do you know that you weren't just noticing it more?
I think I was noticing it before I learned of his
I'm just like messing with you.
No, that's a good point though. It could be that, although I think it wasn't. But that's certainly a plausible thing that could happen. If somebody annoys you for non-work reasons, then you start hating their work.
It's like Horn's effect.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like my answer is still the same, but now I'm like starting to question it.
What was your answer?
That I would still hire them, but like as long as it didn't interfere with their job performance as far as getting in fights with coworkers or offending customers. But like ideal world, I want to think that it seems like people kind of would self-sort themselves to an extent. I know that some people have financial needs and whatnot, but it just seems like if somebody, if a Nazi went and got a job at like a software development company where everybody was super liberal, it would not work out. Yeah. Like
it wouldn't be just a matter of their team being annoyed at them. They'd be like super annoyed at their team all the time.
Yeah, and that's like the whole like, the caveat being if you get in fights with your coworkers or offend the customers. And I feel like that would just happen naturally. Maybe not. And if they're good enough at not doing that, then like then fine, let them stay.
Yeah. The downside is that sounds like it would lead to like more like we talked about with fast food. That makes that relevant is that you'll end up in this bizarre situation where I was trying to think of what the blue restaurant would be. I'm guessing like Wendy's?
Chipotle.
Okay.
It's definitely Chipotle.
I can take that. I was thinking Wendy's because their Twitter is just hilarious. Yeah.
And now I guess also Gillette, apparently?
Yeah, depends.
I only heard about it like peripherally.
I don't know about this
myself.
I saw it on Reddit. They had some commercial that was basically waved all the flags of liberalism.
Okay.
But people are like, look where their money goes. They don't give a shit. This is just virtual signaling to you bunch of idiots. They were annoyed, but it was Reddit, so everyone's always pissed. Oh man, I just came up with a not super appropriate theory for everyone on Reddit is always so annoyed. But now I've mentioned that I had the idea, so I've got to share it. I imagine many people are on Reddit on their phones on the toilet, and the only time they have enough time to sit and write a comment is when it's not going smoothly on the toilet, right? So, of course you're going to sound pissed.
Headcanon accepted.
Yeah.
I'm going to think about that all the time now. Thank you, Stephen.
You bet. Well, to be fair, a lot of people just do it when they're at work and hating their jobs and doing Reddit instead of their jobs.
Doing the equivalent.
No one's on Reddit because they're having a great time and rather be, and are happy to be there when there's other opportunities. So maybe that's just true of the internet in general. Did I just solve internet rudeness? Maybe not.
I mean, you didn't solve it. You found out the cause, though. Yeah. So you were going to talk about Liam Neeson quickly before we went on to something else?
Yeah, I'll try and power through. I know we've been at the first one for a while. So, like a month ago, Liam Neeson, maybe 2. I don't know.
I think it was like at least 2 now.
He was asked like how he gets that like awesome. We were talking about Mads Mikkelsen's new movie with that revenge porn, kind of just like that vibe of like murderous rage.
Yeah.
And they were like, how did you get that? Where did you draw that from with your character for like Taken and those sorts of things? And he said that when he was in his 20s, one of his friends got raped by a black guy. And he apparently, Liam Neeson, walked around, and I forget his exact words, but it was specifically not looking for the perpetrator. It was looking for any poor black son of a bitch to give him any shit so they could beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty disgusting thought to have.
Yeah.
He said he was like this for a few weeks, I think less than a month. And then he kind of woke up and he was like, what the fuck was I doing? And he never, according to his story, got the opportunity to hurt somebody, which is good. And the reaction that I heard to this was kind of, I guess, what you'd expect. Like I said, if you're
half the people went fucking nuts,
which is weird because okay, well, let me explain why I think it's weird. I
agree with you that it's weird.
My thing is that I can't imagine a better way for this to have possibly gone. His crime is for having once been racist.
Yeah, and like another, I think, more clarification. Didn't he actually like this wasn't like widely known about him, right? He actually like came out, told this story, and then said, I used to be like this, but I've changed and I'm ashamed of who I had been and I'm sorry, or something like that.
Yeah. I don't remember if it came with an apology or not, but it was like, I'm ashamed, and this was me. And how old is Liam Neeson? Like 65? So this was 40 years ago.
Yeah. This was during the time when Ireland was still going through its terrorism phase, you know? He was probably living with car bombs and shit going off in his neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a good point. I kind of forgot he was Irish too. But yeah, my thing is, I can't think of a better circumstance for someone to wake up from a prejudiced position. You know, nobody got hurt. Again, according to the story, but I'll take it at face value because everyone else is. What more could they possibly have wanted? And his only, like I said, his crime is having once had racist thoughts 40 years ago, and that he doesn't have anymore, and that he feels that like he's ashamed of. To me, this was like an inspiring story of growth. He might have changed some minds that day, you know? I guess I didn't know what the mob wanted.
I don't think they know either.
They just want someone to crucify. They're like, you said something racist in some way, and so up on the cross for you time.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. That reminds me, Johnny Depp, his girlfriend or wife, I forget, said that, you know, he used to beat her and stuff and had bruises and took pictures and all that. Well, he just, I think he won the suit, or just like it became public that he countersued for the defamation, and he's got surveillance footage of her like being crazy abusive. One time she had smashed his hand so hard that he's lost a piece of his finger.
Wow.
You know, because he's got some mansion and he's a rich guy. He's got cameras and stuff, and all of them have all this abuse towards her, and all the stuff that she said happened was never on any of this footage.
Wow, I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, this was
wild.
yesterday, I think, that the news came out about Johnny Depp. And yesterday being, 13th of March? So it was interesting because I was reading the comments. They're like, people learning about this, and they're like, yeah, I was on the bandwagon. I'm kind of ashamed that I jumped on this just because...
Because he's a guy.
Well, yeah. And, this was...
Yeah, the whole narrative of...
guys suck.
Well, that, and also celebrities, people in, positions of power in particular are going to abuse them and reinforce hierarchies.
Yeah, and it's a drag because that does happen. And what sucks, and this is the same every time somebody makes a false claim whatsoever. Like, I'm realizing that I'm picking a lot of like left-leaning examples. That's because the reason I do that, and to be an asshole, that's because I expect better of the left. Like on the right, that guy who paid that woman to pretend that Mueller raped her.
I hadn't heard about that.
Oh, I'll find his name because it sounds like this sounds ridiculous enough that I'm making it up. The whole thing was completely farcical.
Well, there was that whole two-person team, a guy and a girl, who were trying to sting abortion centers into like admitting that they sell baby parts or something.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. I didn't hear about this one.
Yeah. Oh my God, it was fucking crazy.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Well, the guy who tried to make up this claim against Mueller, nothing happened against him, so he did something else recently. And it was just yesterday or the day before. I think it involved another false police report, but I can't remember what it was.
There was that right-wing lady who carved a bee in her face when Obama was running the first time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway.
You don't remember that?
No.
She's carved a bee into her face and said that a black man attacked her and said something about like, Obama's going to be the next president or something, right?
But why a bee?
For Barack.
Okay.
I would have done an O for Obama.
Yeah. Well, I think a B is easier to carve than an O.
I guess.
Yeah. But importantly, the B was mirror imaged on her face. So it was kind of obvious she did it in a mirror. Because everyone was like, that B's backwards. No one would carve a bee that way unless they were looking at you in a mirror, huh?
That's ridiculous. So she didn't even put it on with makeup. She actually carved this into her own face.
Yes.
And didn't reverse it. What a fucking idiot. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was all dumb. But that's like the one part of the crime you get right.
Well, I mean, maybe.
Maybe. So
we're just like making fun of dumb rightists now.
No. I only brought that up.
All right, let's make fun of the left again.
Well, I only brought that up because all the examples that I bring up are like left-leaning things.
Yeah.
And I think Sam Harris put it this way, was that like, why do you only get on the left for like complaining about being dishonest or intellectual dishonesty, as he's constantly complaining about? And he's like, because we expect better of the left.
Yeah.
He didn't put it quite so poignantly, but I think that's the main thing. And
I think
I guess because me, it's quote my tribe.
Yeah.
And like I want my guys to be the cool guys. If you guys are gonna suck like them, why am I even hanging out with you?
I'm more along the lines of, because I expect people on. I know this is this. It's not racist. It's whatever it is, tribalist, I guess, to expect people on the right to attack me. So whatever. But the first time you're like seriously attacked by someone on the left, it feels like you are being betrayed and your allies are suddenly turned on you. And it's really shitty. And it happens a lot. Fucking happened to Al Franken. It shouldn't. And yet all the time.
Yeah. And so the reason I was thinking of the Johnny Depp situation, and then on the other side, the Mueller fabricator, it sucks because crimes happen all the time. And a lot of people do suck. And then when somebody makes something up for either to get attention or win oppression Olympics points or to try and defame somebody, they help delegitimize every legitimate claim. And that's crazy annoying. So I don't know what to do about it. Actually, I have a suggestion, like as long as I'm talking up my ass, and we're already kind of all over the place. Because Reddit's got a big circle jerk about false rape accusations never having anything happen,
right.
Just other than the guy getting expelled and dragged through the mud for 3 years while he clears his name, and then she maybe gets a couple months in prison or something. He's like, they should reverse the sentence. And
yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I think that's a fair, but the downside is that then
if you try to frame someone for murder, then you get the jail time that he would have gotten if he was found guilty.
That sounds good for a clear-cut crime like murder where there's a body. But the downside is, like, if you say, yeah, a month ago this guy assaulted me, the downside of reversing the punishment is that there's not a way to prove either way. So I guess in that case, you just there's not an easier solution for that. But if you can prove that it was made up. There was one that I saw years ago where somebody had said that they were assaulted by a professional sports person. I can't remember if it was basketball or football or whatever. And they, like, said when and where. And another Redditor saw this and he was like, they were on a flight from like Chicago to whatever going to a game at that exact hour. Like, what are you talking about? So like, if it's that cut and dry and you can say, look, it's made up, then whatever. But so often you can't. And if you're...
I don't even know about like whatever. I feel like there should be some consequence. It is really hard to, first of all, like find that person. Did you say that was like someone had come out and made that accusation, or was it just like they posted it somewhere?
The football person?
Yeah.
I read this 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember, but let's paint it as easy as you want for the thought experiment, and we'll run with that.
I think it should be punished just as much as if it wasn't easily disprovable, because the whole point is most of the time they're not easily disprovable. So when you can disprove it, then it should be punished as a deterrent, right?
Yeah, but I think, like, imagine if you claimed that, like, some rich asshole spitballing, maybe someone like Donald Trump assaulted you, right? Mm-hmm. Daddy Trump has enough money to, like, bribe the case, if he wanted to. There was just that thing yesterday about all those people paying to get their kids into nice schools. If you can afford to write a $20 million check, you can afford to fake some evidence. Well, so you could turn this around by cheating the system and bribing forensic experts or something, right?
I see.
Or faking records. Okay. So, like, it sounds appealing and it sounds like a nice, easy solution, but it sounds so easily scrubbable, and it might disincentivize people who actually did get raped by Donald Trump or someone like him to, come forward and say something.
Well, I don't think he'd ever get... If he actually did rape someone, there wouldn't ever be a case of him actually being on a flight towards some during that time.
No, but you could...
They could doctor evidence of some sort.
Exactly. If you
That's a pretty good point,
if you had $1 million to pay the best forensics faker to fake you a plane log or something, whatever, and then pay a judge to say don't look at the plane log too closely or something, I don't know. I feel like sneaky things happen in court, and the more money you have, the sneakier you can be. But yeah. So
okay.
Next thing. Oh, I got a really quick one. This one will only take 30 seconds.
All right.
Richard, you wrote in and said that our episodes are coming out really quiet. So everyone who heard last week's episode 80 on GPT-2, I upped that by whatever the units of things that Audacity uses.
Decibels.
Is it just decibels on the slider?
Yeah.
It wasn't like percentages or something?
No, it's decibels.
So I upped it by 10 decibels. That doesn't sound like a lot.
No.
Well, because 1 decibel I could notice clear. All right, whatever. I'm not a
You did 10
scientist.
up units.
I did 10 up units.
It's 10 decibels
for every person on the mic.
You can hear the difference between 1 decibel change?
I didn't think so, but I can hear the difference on one slider on Audacity.
Really?
Yeah, because I change it so I'll slide one person down and up and then hear them sound differently.
And you just slide them 1?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, weird. Because if I move a slider by 1, I never hear a difference.
Oh.
I heard the general rule is like humans can't differentiate less than 3 decibels.
That's why I thought it was not decibels.
Okay.
Maybe I was...
You're just super sensitive when it comes to decibel hearing.
Or my brain's tricking me. In any case, episodes should be coming out louder now, assuming that sliding up the decibels on the things actually makes it come out louder. So, if anyone... No one told us this for like 2 years. So, if everyone's been straining to hear it this whole time, then hopefully that won't be a problem anymore. So, thanks, Richard.
We talked about how useful it was to society when everyone was taught basic literacy and basic numeracy, even though it doesn't seem like there's any one specific case where like, yeah, this is really good to have for this job, so we should train everyone in it. It was mentioned in that episode that perhaps simple programming like Python is the same kind of thing. If everyone was programming literate, then we might have huge gains as a society equal to something like literacy or numeracy. And there was some general skepticism on that point. But Zikaron wrote, I had to stop that podcast right as you were saying you weren't sure what teaching Python would do for students. But in general, teaching programming to students should hopefully increase the amount of logical thinking, falsification, truth table style logic, etc., even if they never touch programming again and get degrees in French Lit. Which is a good point.
So for the record, that was some private correspondence between me and him.
Oh, was it?
So I think he might have put it on the Reddit. He said he was going to, but I was going to get points for that feedback. So Zeke, you're welcome. No, that's actually a really good point. I can't believe we didn't think of it. Certainly, at least falsification. Writing a unit test just to think of what would I not expect to see here. That's like the most rationalist question you can ask,
Yeah.
or at least one of the most scientific questions you can ask. And that sounds crazy valuable.
I think
and just having grooved that in at some point, at somewhere in your curriculum, if you didn't get it in science, because it's hard to get in science because it's not often taught the best. It's usually like, memorize the names of stars or whatever. It's not hypothesis testing. But programming explicitly is if you're writing tests or just doing something, but specifically testing like that too, right? So I thought that was a really cool comment.
Yeah, they have started to teach something called computational thinking, where it's not strictly programming per se, but it's teaching kids to think in terms of like these exact things.
Neat.
And
I did always notice there was a distinct difference in culture between people who at least were programming adjacent and those who had never done anything similar to that. Back when I was in high school, there was just a slightly different way of thinking about things.
They're probably used to like thinking precisely, and that sounds like it might be putting them on too high of a pedestal, but maybe
I think more used to quantifying things into variables and how they can be manipulated,
and like
which is different from precise thinking.
And knowing like what it means to assert something, and knowing that means that you can test it in a way that is provable or not. Maybe.
yeah, like a approach to solving problems.
Yeah.
And breaking tasks down.
A different listener said, and I didn't copy it down, so I don't remember which listener it was, I apologize, said that a lot of basic office tasks, like the really simple ones that are probably common for accounting or any sort of secretarial position, could probably benefit from some quick Python automation where it would save you time and effort.
Oh, that was in the subreddit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. The downside is that your boss learns that and you're out of the job. There was somebody who used to come to meetups that...
Really?
I mean, it depends on the job, but like one guy that I'm thinking of, he used to come to meetups. He did a lot of his stuff was they used like Excel for basically all their like database stuff because it was an old company and I guess they didn't care to do it the right way. But he basically wrote little scripts that would get whatever he needed and store stuff however he needed and all this and that. So his job would basically go in, run whatever script he needed to do, and just hang out. And I think there's more to it than that, but I mean, his job probably took 20% as long as he was being paid to do it.
Oh, I see. So like if you're like lying about how much time you're spending,
yeah,
I guess.
That's not lying.
Well,
it's like
or
it's doing
withholding
the
the
job they
truth.
gave you.
Yeah.
yeah.
You paid me to do a job and I did it.
But if they learn how easy the job is, or not how easy, but how easy it could be, if one good developer could replace your entire data management team,
then you should pay him as much as your entire data management team.
Yeah, like that's going to happen.
Right.
But then that also means that one person takes 5 people's jobs or something like that too, right? So,
Yeah.
But UBI, basic income, sounds like a great fix to this because that's happening, whether we want it to or not at some point for most things. So.
Yep.
I was just thinking 10, 15 million Americans earn their income through driving of some
Really?
sort. It's like 3%, 3.2 or 3.5% of jobs.
Holy shit.
So I guess that's including the total number of Americans, not working Americans, but whatever. It's millions.
Okay.
And I mean, that's going away in the not too distant future. So yeah.
Did we talk about
Strange
Logan
times.
before on this show?
No.
Logan the movie?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Well, just the
let's do
one
this.
one thing where someone at the beginning of the movie, they have the self-driving semi-trucks, right? And they're just like barreling along, and one almost runs over Logan or runs him off the road or something. It was pretty intense.
It like swerves him off the road. Yeah.
Yeah, and someone said that kind of threw me out of the movie because no system would be programmed to be that aggressive and run people off the road and shit. And my view was like that was really good world building. Because we are living in a crap shack dystopian future where the corporations don't care about people so much that they're like, yeah, haul your shit to the next door and we don't care who you run off the road. And everyone accepts it because the corporations are the only ones with power now.
Yeah, hopefully we don't get that world.
Yeah, right.
Sidebar on superheroes. I dragged everyone to see Captain Marvel this weekend, and I guess "drag" is the right word for it because it wasn't as
It was consensual.
It wasn't as resounding of a success as I thought it was going to be. I loved it, so we need votes on who liked Captain Marvel.
I liked it. I think like
I meant from the people, but from you guys too.
Oh,
so
oh.
yeah, name and shame. Go for it. Eneash. Well, you first, Jess.
No, I just
Eneash
wanted to say that I feel like
you're
you're being kind of down on yourself because not everybody like loved the movie, but like
no.
I like to criticize movies, so the fact that like I was picking it apart doesn't mean that I didn't like it.
No,
that
you're
was what
great.
I wanted.
No, not at all.
to do.
I said this to Eneash. No, my love of these movies is secure enough that I feel not. How did I put it? I had a way that I liked. No, it was just that I'm secure enough in my love of these movies that you guys aren't bumming me out by not liking it. I'm poking fun.
Okay.
If you guys can't hear my smile, it's there. No, I like picking stuff apart too. It was just it was mainly Eneash, just like when you had said something along the lines of I get the feeling that the writers don't think their audience is smart and just turn out another movie with the exact same recipe and say fuck you, eat it up.
Yeah. And then you were slightly insulted by that, so I apologize.
I jokingly said I feel personally attacked.
Well, okay, so here's my thing about Captain Marvel. I thought it was just not a good movie in terms of movies in general. It was kind of lazy. There was no character building. There was no stakes. I never really cared about Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel or her struggle. And when I looked back on it, it was very much that sort of thing where things don't have to make sense. We don't have to make you care about the character. We don't have to really do anything aside from follow this basic script. We know you're all going to come and watch our movie anyway. And I just felt like the creators of the movie had a casual contempt for the audience, like you said. So I think it's just generally a downright bad movie. But the thing is, I have seen a lot of people who really, really love it. And almost all of those people are of the female persuasion. And so I think there is something in it that talks to people. Like there's a really brief, like minute and a half, maybe 2-minute montage of people being sexist to her and her like trying to do things and everyone's like, you can't do that because you're a woman. You know why they call it a cockpit, right? And I was like, that is, okay, that's infuriating, sure, but that is just like not enough. That doesn't show us personal struggle. That doesn't really show us her being hurt. It's a brief montage, but apparently it really talked to a lot of people who have that experience in their own life, and they didn't need to see it like fully brought out in the story. They were just like, oh yeah, I've had that happen to me too, and just an instant emotional hook for them because like, you don't need to show me all that. I am on her wavelength right now. So it may very well be a movie that is just not really for me, that talks directly to one audience. And I think it might be like the Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality for women, sort of. I don't want to say for women in general because that's way too broad, but
I think you got a raised eyebrow from our local woman here.
But when people rag on how Harry Potter and Methods of Rationality is all about like this bratty, uber smart, ubermensch guy and nobody can stand him, I think...
I haven't heard him described as ubermensch.
Okay.
But
I
sure
think
probably someone has done it.
I think the reason a lot of us really love it is because we instantly recognize our struggles and the shit we went through when we were kids, when we read Harry. And so you don't need to do a lot more to win us over. We're like, I know that person. I was that person. Oh my God, this is perfect.
I was that smart ass.
Yeah, exactly. And so maybe Captain Marvel is the same thing for a certain audience.
That's possible. I mean, for what it's worth, I brought up we need a poll from like I was going to have like people vote on Reddit whether they like the movie or not. I didn't mean to derail us on it for more than 5 seconds, but I don't know. I think I might suffer from what Paul Bloom calls like
Marvel derangement syndrome.
I was going to say like pathological empathy or something.
Ah, okay.
In that I didn't have to be a woman to really, I guess I know women.
I think that's normal empathy, Steven.
Yeah, but
that you can empathize with someone who's not you.
But someone who's so not me.
Precisely not. Yeah.
I don't know. I saw her struggle, and not through my own history, but through history of that I've imagined from what I've heard. From women in my life. So,
but it's not like Masters of Sex had a beautiful several episode arc where you really see how much she struggles because she's a woman in it was either 50s or 60s, and just in general how they're so easily dismissed, and the few women that make it big, what they have to go through. And Mad Men, it just made my blood fucking boil to the point where I couldn't watch it. And this had none of that. This was just like, here's a thing that happens sometimes.
So to be fair, if Mad Men was only 2 hours long, then it wouldn't have had time to get your blood that hot, right?
I only watched one 1 hour episode.
Oh, okay.
It pissed me off enough I couldn't watch anymore.
I completely retract my statement. So I think that they tried to walk the line between this isn't just the story of a woman who overcame people being a dick and proved to be crazy awesome. They tied it into the 20 movie long saga of the MCU in a way that I thought was fantastically done and loved.
But what did she do to become awesome? she was hit by an explosion.
Almost none of them did anything. Like, well, let me rephrase that. So, like, I mean, we could go through the roster, but the powered individuals on the team, maybe 2 of them earned it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless they're gonna, I guess Steve Rogers maybe because he was cool enough to get the shot, but whatever. Like, he didn't. To quote Iron Man, everything special about him came out of a bottle, right? And
no,
so,
because
like, his character, you know, his personality maybe was his, but so was hers. You know, she could have been an asshole. She could have, you know. So,
well, what was her personality?
I liked her character a lot more than I liked Wonder Woman's.
Okay,
and I'm saying this as somebody who saw Wonder Woman 3 times. I think Wonder Woman, I loved it a lot more the first time. Her like adorable naivete becomes super unbearable on subsequent rewatches. Like, you watch this and she it's not just that she doesn't know what stuff is. That's quaint and adorable, and that was fun with Thor when he was from space and whatever. It's that she never
Captain America because he was from the 50s.
She never gets it though. The whole time she's just like, why do people have watches? What's war? Why is everyone being a dick? And again, that's how it sounded on the third watch. Like, I know, and there were a lot of moments I loved in that movie, and she also overcomes her struggles. Again, she didn't earn her powers either, right? But
didn't she get them? I mean, like, I know she was some kind of special race of super women or something, but didn't she also train her entire life?
She trained, but she was the daughter of Zeus. She probably would have been strong no matter what, right?
Okay.
So, but that aside, the point isn't like whether or not they earn their powers through being awesome, like maybe Iron Man did.
But on the naivety thing, real quick before we move on. First of all, I love all the naive fish out of water characters, which I've told you multiple times before. I love Thor and Captain America for the same reason. But one of the things about that sort of naive character is that it lets you see your own society from a new point of view, like from someone who's completely shocked by these things. And to just stop that after a half hour is kind of like lame. You got this cool way to explore society by pointing out how weird it would be from someone outside of it. Run with it for the whole length of the movie. Or at least I like that, because seriously, why do we have war? It's fucking stupid. And I mean, I know why we have war, but if I didn't, looking at it from someone from the outside, I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe these people do this shit.
No, that is a lot of fun, and it's a great thought experiment. Like, I think Daniel Dennett saying, putting on your three alien shoes and standing in that position to see the world. That said, I've got to plug, I'll have to find the name, I'll put it in the episode description. There's the series of adorable comics with these little blue aliens.
Oh, yes.
And it's like, here, I've handed you your present, and it's concealed. They're like, oh, thank you. It's like, no, you must destroy the concealment paper right now. I want to watch. And it's like just someone getting a birthday present, but it's putting it from a perspective of someone who doesn't know any of the stuff is, and it sounds hilarious, and they lay it all out. And that is fun, and it's cute. I think we've probably gone on Captain Marvel too long. I liked it a lot, and I totally understand and see why you didn't like it, and I totally support picking things apart and being annoyed at inconsistencies or at least noticing them. I've got nothing against any of that stuff either.
Yeah.
So moving on.
Okay.
All right.
Probably back to feedback.
Yes.
This is what you get when you get a feedback episode.
Us talking about movies.
Real quick, so we can get through this from Rockham. Rockham? Is it pronounced Rockham?
Sounds right.
Okay. Yes! Now my expertise comes out! This was when we were talking about derivatives and what they are. A derivative is any kind of financial contract whose value is based on something else. For example, I bet the stock price next week will be between $10 and $15. If I am wrong, I will pay you $1. A simple example why derivatives are helpful to the real economy are airlines. The airline will say, I bet jet fuel prices will go way up. If that's true, the airline wins the bet and uses the earnings to offset their losses on jet fuel. Either way, the airline wins.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's useful to realize that a derivative position that's 200 times higher than an equity position is not necessarily 200 times worse. In my first example, you could lose at most $1, but your books would say that you have a derivative on $15 worth of underlying.
That kind of sounds like the rationalist magic stuff we were talking about, only with real money.
Rationalist magic stuff?
We had David Youssef on, like 6-8 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, this sounds like less magic and more math, but I like it. And someone might try to forgive me for saying this, David, if you're listening, but someone might try to pass this off as like I'm being arcane and mystical when really they know derivatives. But is that like I guess financial industry ins and outs? What's like the field that lives in?
Finance.
Thank you. God. Now you know how well educated I am.
Money? You're just not into the business world very much.
Well, there's multiple meanings of derivative, but that's the money one.
Right. There's also the math one and
the language one.
Yeah.
Are there others? I think that's it. Maybe.
Rockham has the second one on here. That's
on the same episode.
Oh yeah.
And also about money.
Yes.
This is your wheelhouse. I'll let you guys read this. I can't talk.
I'll read it. Rockham also wants to emphasize that those two guys from Yukowski's post, Merton and Scholes, are big names in the world of derivative pricing. Their model might not be, in scare quotes, true, but it is so darn useful and near accurate that it's still the way that you introduce anyone to the subject. Hearing how their company failed kind of feels like how it would feel to learn that Newton died by falling off of an apple tree.
So these were those guys who just kept investing and wouldn't let their ship sink.
And lost tons and tons of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I was the person that didn't realize that those were real people. It was kind of like, man, those guys for the example are idiots, though. Nobody in real life would do that. And then somebody pointed out, I think they're real. And I was like, damn it.
In your defense, it seemed indefensibly stupid. So stupid that it'd have to not be a real person. And I wonder, it sounds, and I'm assuming Rockham knows more than I do, so I'll take their word for it. But my impression was that they were just conning the whole time. Like,
No.
well, but I think my impression from reading the post was that, like, you go on long enough, you it's like those alien cultists that, like, thought that their alien ship was trailing behind Halley's Comet or something. So they bought that big telescope, and then when they didn't see it, they blamed the telescope manufacturer and tried to return it.
Okay.
I thought it was like that, where, like, they were deluded.
Yeah, they were deluded for sure, but supposedly they believed in their own model
right,
and enough to keep betting on it.
Yeah, I always sort of assume that the ringleaders of any cult is...
yeah, but it wasn't... I think they were taking the hits after a while, and they just kept, like...
They kept running with it, yeah. But I thought it was kind of like some sort of Ponzi scheme stuff. But the post didn't get into much about how they were doing all of this. I assumed it was some shady, like, I'm huckstering you.
No, I think if it was that we would have heard about it the same we did about Madoff.
I didn't hear about Madoff.
Yeah, and also they would have
you
actually
didn't hear
made
about
money
Madoff?
off it.
Madoff was the guy who went to jail for his gigantic Ponzi scheme, the biggest one in history, cost literally billions of dollars.
Dope. Man, life gets easy. You get to live life on easy mode if you're willing to live with that ethics.
Well, I mean,
kind of.
Sort of.
Unless
He's in
you get
jail
caught.
now.
Yeah, kind of. That's fair, yeah. Speaking of cult leaders, and since I got the Avengers on my mind, there was a movie called... It's actually really fun. Bad Night at the El Royale. It sort of did like a little anthology thing where they all check into this seedy motel that's like on the border of, I think, Nevada and Utah. And like half the hotel's in Nevada, half is in Utah, but that's not really interesting. And then it does like, room 4, room 5, and it does like what was going on, because like you see kind of little bits, and then brings it all together. And the crazy cult leader in that movie was Thor.
Actual Thor or the actor?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Neat.
Yeah, it was Chris Hemsworth.
But was he
He didn't have his hammer. He wasn't Thor. I call Chris Hemsworth Thor.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, I see the confusion.
Yeah, because if he's a crazy cult leader, he could, in theory, claim to be Thor and have followers that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been some other actor entirely who was just like, I am Thor, worship me.
It was a fun movie.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're totally good. It was one of those bizarre sex cults. It doesn't really explain what made him so appealing, other than like the fact that he didn't wear a shirt that closed, and it was awesome. So,
who isn't into bizarre sex, right?
Right.
Did he look like Chris Hemsworth?
Yeah.
Okay.
With a weird mustache, but I can't remember if it was like a goatee or something. It was something weird. No, it wasn't a goatee. Whatever, one of those U-shaped mustaches. It worked on him. Okay. And then the dude was in it. He was great.
Oh, from The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I like how you're just referring to actors as the other roles that they've played and not their
the only
names.
actors' names I know are
I
the
also
Avengers,
do that because I
but,
don't know actor names.
I got it. His name was because he was also Obadiah Stane in the first Iron Man movie. The dude was.
Okay.
Yeah. So I refer to people by other stuff they've been in. I don't know anyone's names.
Now I don't know his name, which is ridiculous because I know his name. I refer to him all the time, and yet you have somehow catapulted his name out of my brain.
And Drake's not here, so we can't ask him.
Oh.
All right, it's gonna bug
next comment.
Okay.
So, Elk 12.
Jeff Bridges. Sorry.
Anyway, Elk 12429 was talking about chess. I forget when we were talking about chess exactly, but
Yeah, we should start dating these for the future.
we should, yeah.
Because we put in 8 days ago, but that was 8 days ago when we grabbed the post. So
Also, we should put what they're in reference to. There was a chess question, and Elk says, heads up on the chess question. There are chess championships, which are open to anyone regardless of gender, and women's chess championships. The dual system recognizes the most excellent women, but the top handful of women are able to compete in both. I think we were
awesome.
talking about, I forget his name, but the guy who like trained his daughters to be really awesome at chess.
Yeah.
that might have been that, or there was something
reference
after
to
that too,
parenting.
where I was saying that there was that they segregate chess championships.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was
then-
probably in response to you saying that.
Yeah, but I can't remember if I learned this before or after, if this is the same thing that I talked about that brought this comment. But
Apparently they kind of only have to. Like, there's the, like, open to anyone and then the specific women's ones. And I understand that the reason that is that there's just less women that play chess.
Yeah.
So that's like...
And that's one way to keep people engaged. But I think I learned this after. There was somebody who competes at chess at the national level who was commenting about this on Reddit. They were saying that the bar for being a grandmaster at chess is lower for women in whatever this guy was competing in.
Huh.
And that I think it was like a scale of 25 or something. And anyone 23 and up was a grand champion.
It may just be because there's less women in the
that's what I would
women's championship.
assume.
It could be, but he was annoyed because he would, like, I think for whatever it was, if he was a woman, he would be a grand champion. But since he's not, he's not.
Well, if it's only like the top 2% in your league can be grand champion, then if there's less people in it, the raw point number is going to have to be lower.
I think it was the same competition, though.
But yeah,
But whatever it is, it was some weird thing.
that dude could always just transition and become a woman, then join the chess championship. But there's a reason he's not doing that, huh?
Or he could try to do what I did at the pot store once, which was, it was Women's Wednesdays where they got like half off. And I just told the guys, like, I'm a woman. And I said, if I said I was a woman, would you give me half off? And he kind of was just like, I don't know, man. And I'm like, I'm not going to push it. That's fine. But I was sort of annoyed at, it's like, whatever. But that was me not really sincerely doing that because I'm not an asshole. I did say that to the guy, but I didn't push it because I'm not a dick. There's that guy who goes around suing nightclubs for ladies' nights, which seems like a dick move. Because
does he not have a point?
I don't know. Like, they're trying to just get more business.
Yeah, no, I understand absolutely the business justification for it. It's the same reason we don't hire black people in racist towns, right?
Is it? I'm actually thinking about this.
No,
I don't have any opinions about this because I haven't really thought about it.
Well, because guys will go to where the women are. And
if women can drink free, they'll go to where the free drinks are.
Exactly. So
and
it's a
then
great
you bring in
business
paying
move.
customers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have a problem with it?
No, not necessarily. Aside from the fact that it is discriminating based on gender.
I guess.
If we have said that we are not cool with that in society, is the exception unless it's ladies' night?
I don't go to ladies' night things because I don't want to get hit on by like all the dudes that come there to like hit on people from ladies' night. So like, there's some more effects going on there, but I don't know. I don't have enough brain power to make a opinion on this right now.
I guess to me it always comes back to, are we actually against gender discrimination in all forms at all times?
I'm just imagining you putting this in a letter that's addressed, Dear Intellectual Dark Web.
Do it.
No, I don't. I honestly don't care about ladies' nights. I'm just interested on if we as a society do have that principle or if we have exceptions.
I want to see smart people debate about this so I can steal their opinions because I'm like drawing a blank. There's probably this happening somewhere. So, I don't know about the smart people part, but
is there like I guess I'm not a lawyer is kind of my answer. Like, I know that you can refuse service to anybody for no reason or for whatever reason you want.
And generally.
So, like, I mean, I remember even going to gas stations that we're going to refuse service to anyone for any reason, just like the sign that they post, which is basically the way of saying, like, if you're acting weird, we'll kick you out. But the sign doesn't say that. It says we can refuse service for any reason. I would assume if it's your company, you can give free stuff to whoever you want.
Yeah, but there's also the public access laws where if you are a public-facing company, you have to treat all customers equally. Like, if you are selling shoes, you can't kick out black people, you can't kick out women, you can't be like, we will not serve you. Like the gay birthday
cake thing.
Oh yeah, the birthday cake thing too, I guess. But the law was originally passed to allow black people to eat at diners with white people. They're like, if you're a public-facing company, you have to serve everyone who wants to give you money to get your product, and that's it. You don't get to say, no, you're black, so we won't sell you a sandwich.
Maybe these bars get around that by serving everybody, but only some people have to pay.
Well, I mean, from what it sounds like, they aren't getting away with it anymore because someone took it to court and won.
I think this was like, one guy doing this to several bars in one state or something. I don't think that has changed the
I believe
legality.
the state was Colorado.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I assumed it was Florida.
What happened exactly?
Apparently I don't have the details. My
and
understanding
he
was
won is the thing.
That he went to several nightclubs or bars or something on ladies' nights and tried to get free drinks, and they said, sorry, ladies only. And he's like, aha, I got you for discrimination, and then sued and won a few times at different establishments. I assumed it was just some asshole trying to make some easy money.
No, I think it was an actual dude with principles who wanted to see if the law applies.
No, I always assumed that he was making in hundreds of thousands on each of these lawsuits and was just doing that for a living.
How do you make money on lawsuits?
Don't people make money like suing McDonald's for hot coffee and this? Don't get me wrong, she was disgustingly, intensely injured.
I heard another person come back and say that actually the McDonald's coffee wasn't hotter than any of the other coffee being served at the time.
But in any case,
the debate continues. Yeah.
In the United States, state courts in California, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin have ruled that ladies' night discounts are unlawful gender-based price discrimination under state or local statutes. However, courts in Illinois, Minnesota, and Washington have rejected a variety of challenges to such discounts. Weird.
Yeah. The more we talk about this, the more I think I'm against ladies' night. But I have to think about it more to form like a coherent opinion rather than just a gut instinct thing.
I don't
like I said, I'm not. I don't really care one way or the other because I don't go out, and I think most people like them. And if most people like things and they aren't hurting people, then whatever. But I think they do go against the principle of gender equality. So that's my opinion on that. It goes against the principle, but whatever.
Yeah, and it's also like weird. Like, I'm non-binary. Do I get a drink?
Yeah. Non-binary.
I mean, are they... I guess that depends on whether they're giving the drink based on gender or
like
on
what
sex.
What are they exactly? Yeah. How are, that's what I'm getting weird vibes off of it from.
Yeah.
I'd rather everybody just get treated equally now that I, kind of am thinking about it.
But then you're imputing on a company to do whatever it wants with its own company, right? So
I guess. I mean...
A bunch of big government leftists.
This is hard.
Communists.
I'm done. Let's make an episode about this later.
I don't have a lot to say about it. I was just throwing that in there because it was somehow vaguely related to the chess thing, which I should have saved that post about the guy talking about chess championships and stuff because I thought it was relevant. But then in my defense, I thought we were going to get to this sooner. So Not Without Incident asked, I'm not a writer, so I'd be curious about Eneash's opinion. And I think this was before we had Jess on as a co-host, and you're also a writer, so
yeah,
I want your feedback on this.
I'm not published, but
yeah,
but I write things.
It doesn't seem to me like most best-selling authors are sellouts. Obviously, some are, but even looking at sci-fi, not generally the case. For example, Ready Player One may seem like pandering, but based on interviews, it also seemed like exactly what Ernest Cline wanted to write. God, I butchered that. That's why you guys read these.
Yeah, I think Not Without Incident has a very, very good point, and for the most part, with a few exceptions, everything I've seen that catches on and becomes bestseller is something that the author did really want to write and feels, strongly for, and is not just like making a cold, calculated cash grab. To be honest, in my personal experience, I've only run across that once, and it just really left such a bad taste in my mouth that I remembered it. I'm sure it happens every now and then. I hear James Patterson does it constantly. I know the creator of Garfield did it, but it really doesn't happen very much. So if I gave the impression that it does, I'm really sorry. I think what I was more on about was that
you were channeling that you wrote a non-traditional book and it didn't become a New York Times bestseller yet.
Well, no. Right. Not even that. I mean, sure, it's not as optimal as writing a bestseller would be in any case. But no, the thing is, you read a lot and you start to kind of see what will become a bestseller and why, and it just... I understand why people like it. So I don't know... I don't remember where this video was, so I can't link it, but all the most popular movies, games, books, anything, any sort of media, the most popular ones always have the same message, and that message is always you were right all along.
Yeah.
Neo in The Matrix. The main story of that, the main message of that movie, Neo was right all along. Harry Potter. Yeah, he started out being, living under the stairs, everyone hated him. He was right all along. Any sort of story that's really affirming and that people love is a solid story that the main message is you were right all along. And I just am bored with those now. And yeah.
I was trying to think if that applied to things like Worm, I guess specifically just Worm, because War isn't finished, and I read Wild Bill's other stuff, and almost a little.
I'm wondering about that.
Finally, everyone was working together.
Yeah, well, she's also what is the word? Unreliable protagonist, so...
Unreliable narrator?
Unreliable, yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, well, we spoiled it.
No, I mean, it's not...
Not really, that's not really a spoiler.
Because it's never explicitly said. In fact, I didn't really think of that until you pointed that out a couple weeks ago when we were chatting about it.
Really?
I mean, there's times definitely where, she's unreliable for, explicit in-text reasons, like she's blind or something, but that was, for the narrative of those scenes. But it didn't occur to me until, mainly, I guess, when you had me reflect on it and listening to We've Got Worm, but,
Yeah, you're in her head the whole story, and of course,
And it makes sense to me, because I totally feel where she's coming from all the time, but then it occurs to me, she totally feels where she's coming from all the time, and I'm in her head, so I guess I would. But I guess I didn't think about the unreliable narrator thing until you pointed it out to me. I didn't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry.
That
I was enthusiastic.
Pretty much my thought.
I'm sorry. I was eager to join in on how I was enlightened by that and then ruin the point. let's see. It kind of maybe actually it's kind of like your thing with like the generic superhero movie.
Mm.
It's like, here's the recipe for a superhero movie. Go forth and make it. Aha! That you guys all enjoyed it, just like we all knew you would.
Yeah.
And so like there's been that suite of like basically child battle royale movies that are based off of books that have been coming out in the last 5 years, like The Hunger Games and Divergent and other things like that, where it's like all exactly the same, some dystopic future with tribes of humans that don't get to choose their tribes, and then one's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a recipe, and I can't believe that the third or fourth person to do that thought that they had an original idea, right?
Right.
Maybe they did. Then again, that's not really fair because
But
there's 100 movies where like the person's secretly a wizard.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be an original idea. It was just someone who thought, oh, that's a really cool concept. I want to write something like that, and they did. It doesn't have to be original to spark a passion in someone.
Yeah.
Myth stories, I think, are unoriginal.
I mean, really, there's only 7 stories in the world, right?
Well, not really, but
What's that from?
It's an old theory of, not even literature, just theory of storytelling in general, that there's really only 7 basic stories, and sometimes the number fluctuates. Sometimes there's only 3, sometimes there's only 12, whatever. But it comes down to there's only so many broad general categories that you can more or less fit everything into, but that doesn't mean things aren't unoriginal.
If you have a summary of that, whatever analysis, I'm interested in reading it. Sounds like something Robin Hanson might notice or point
yeah,
out.
I think I think it's true for mainstream stuff. I don't know. I like to read weird experimental short stories that are just like xenofiction, which I don't think fall into any of them. But like, depends what you're counting.
What's xenofiction?
Or like starfish alien fiction. Like somebody's just basically trying to get into the head of the most inhuman thing they can imagine and kind of describe stories about them or their daily lives.
Okay, like Three Worlds Collide from the Super Happy's point of view.
Yeah,
Okay.
stuff like that.
That sounds cool. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Yeah, I without knowing what these categories are and how to tell a story, it would be hard to say how that fits in.
Oh, well, whenever I mention it, it's also kind of tongue-in-cheek because it's said so much, and on the one hand, it's a truism, and on the other hand, it's complete bullshit, so...
I think you can nitpick it, like technicalities about stuff like xenofiction or maybe like weird forms of fan fiction or like
Then you just
poetry.
dig your heels in and say that's not really story or something.
I'm not saying it's not really story. I don't know. Like I think that you're basically what you were saying is just that like it's kind of true in a sense, and then also you can like nitpick it and find fringe examples where it's not true. Maybe there's like 7 stories that just really resonate with people because that like describes their experience for the most part. The 7 basic experiences.
That sounds fun. I need to learn more about reading and writing, I guess. I know how to read and write. That's where my education on the subject stopped. So you guys are the ones who write and attend workshops.
It's more like
and all
analysis stuff.
that. I also can't do that. I'm working on it.
I think you're better at it than you think.
I'm getting there.
Well.
I'm trying.
Zikaron says, one of my favorite TED Talks is about the 3 metrics that allow us to continually break more records. The TLDW?
Too long, didn't watch.
Oh, okay. Is 1, better training, 2, better tech, such as lighter shoes with more friction, 3, genetic selection, such as going to the middle of Africa and finding the fastest man in the world. Also, we know how much faster tech improvements make us, so we know how fast the record breakers from decades past would be if they ran today. I would like to say I also saw that video. I also thought it was freaking awesome, and so we will post a link on our website, thebayesianconspiracy.com, with a link to that TED Talk.
Sounds dope. I didn't actually watch that yet, and I'm interested. So it's not just the case that we're better, stronger, and faster. Well, he said that's part of it.
Yeah, it is part of it.
Okay, yeah, but it seems to be implying we know exactly how much faster tech improves. It sounded like you're saying that if we gave, whatever, the 1950s gold medalist in sprinting, new running shoes on a good track, that they'd be able to keep up with today's speedsters.
Yeah,
Right.
I think he's saying that we could calculate how fast they would be today.
We calculate
But
how
we're
much they
still
would lose
faster
by.
today.
Yeah, okay,
So
cool.
there's
Gotcha.
better training. There's better, there's a wider pool of people to grab athletes from. This reminds me of the Slate Star Codex post yesterday, which was, does reality drive straight lines on graphs, or do straight lines on graphs drive reality? Where I'm wondering, like, how far can we take this continual improvement? I think I said that when we talked about it last time, too, so I shouldn't go on my transhuman spiel again.
We haven't had an explicitly transhumanism episode, have we?
We have
You
one.
guys did before I was on the show, but I might be misremembering.
It was like episode in the late teens, I think.
Well, maybe time for
could do it part
to
2.
revisit it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's been a couple years. All right, next one.
Calvin321 says, everyone thinks they are an above-average driver because people don't agree on the correct metric to judge good driving. The speed safety trade-off is different between people. Strategies such as when to change lanes is debated, or how to handle heavy traffic. When is rolling through a stop sign permissible? Never? God, no. Sometimes it is. Does always stopping make you a good driver or a terrible rule follower? And so forth. But I can see how every individual person can see that they think they're an above average driver because by their metric, there's a lot of shitty drivers out there, but those drivers are just using a different metric, which they think puts them, is the correct way to drive.
Yeah. I can see that. That's a good way to put it.
There's like a book I want to highlight again. I feel like I've mentioned this maybe twice on the podcast before, but there's a book called Traffic, Why We Drive the Way We Do. And it's like a book on kind of the psychology of driving. And they talk about a lot of this stuff in this book. And that was pretty cool for me because I kind of like got really upset about driving since I have to drive a lot. And a lot of rules of the road are not like explicit. And I want them written down. So like, the stuff you learn in driving class when you're first getting your license is not like the stuff that people do on the road. And we're running into that with self-driving cars too, having to train the AIs and all the like implicit driving stuff that you're supposed to just pick up through experience. The one thing that I thought was pretty cool that I learned from this book is that there's basically like two styles of merging that everyone does, and people seem to kind of just learn one or the other, I guess, through like whoever taught them through experience. But there's early merge and late merge. And there's these two schools of thought where if everyone were to just start early merging, which is where, say that there's a line of traffic and you're on a ramp trying to merge into the left, you would pull all the way up as far as you could before merging. And then you like kind of zipper merge or whatever. There's also other merge styles at that point. And then there's early merge where people try to get in as soon as possible, so as not to do the thing where they're like pulling all the way up, which seems rude to them. So I'm saying this because I'm a early merger.
Me too.
Yeah, and
there are dozens of us.
Well, apparently,
it's the objectively worst way to merge.
No, actually, apparently either one works great as long as everybody's using the same one.
Oh, okay.
Which I thought was really funny because I thought my way was right until I read this.
Well, what's the point of early merging? Because I want to say when there's construction, you're going from 2 lanes to 1, and the point where you only have 1 lane is shitty because much less traffic can get through. So why make that 1 lane area even longer by merging like a block earlier? Have it be 2 lanes as far as you can have it be 2 lanes.
So until I just learned that this is not the objectively best way to do it, my thinking was that I see the assholes in nice cars go speeding up to the speed limit to slam on their brakes at the cones and then force their way in and cause this cascade of people slamming on their brakes.
Okay, well, first of all, don't speed up and then slam on your brakes. Generally, you just drive like a normal person, and then when you get to the end, you zipper in.
Ineash, the philosophy behind early merge is that it's easier to get in early on because cars are spaced out further apart.
That's what I do. I don't force my way in. I get over when there's room, and I'm like, so I can save 30 seconds and get to the front of the line, or I'll just get there when I get there. To me, it's the passive way of driving.
Okay. Hey, you guys just found something you disagree on.
Damn it, Steven. We can't be friends anymore.
Weren't you looking for one so you could double croaks?
That's right.
Yeah.
This probably isn't important enough.
We'll find it. We'll find a way. We'll find a way.
It might be funny anyway.
Yeah. So that's exactly it. Is I let people in when I can, but I can see, in the event that that's not the best way to do it, I will, I'll keep that in mind. But really, it's just like, when is there a safe opportunity? Like, maybe it depends on the area and how, like Jess said, it's how everyone else is doing it. If they're all doing it the same way, both will work. But since that's not how it works, neither work, it looks like.
I've literally seen this going to the point where it was more than one stoplight from where the actual construction started, which is just ridiculous. It screws over the people that want to turn left or want to turn right before you get to the construction. And also, it's so unnecessary.
So driving's dumb and robots should do it, is what I'm hearing here. But it's hard to teach robots how to do it because we don't really know how to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We do a lot of stuff on instinct, and I forget if this was from this book or not, but like, if you ask someone to pantomime the hand motions they make when they're turning a car, they actually do it incorrectly.
Yeah,
like turning left and turning right.
Yeah.
People do that the wrong way.
Well, you actually did it correctly.
But I know what you mean. And that's true, I think, because it's counterintuitive, especially like when reversing. We were trying to get my fiance into the garage because it snowed crazy in Denver this week, and my parking lot was like kind of plowed in that there was like room for like one car, but since the snow piles were 3 feet tall, she couldn't like back into spots to try and angle in. And so trying to tell her from standing behind the car, like, go this way or like turn left, and then see how the wheels work when you're trying to like 3-point turn in. It's not super intuitive, I guess, unless you are painting a picture in your head of what your wheels are doing while you're doing it, rather than just doing what you feel like you're doing. I guess I'm getting at is driving is confusing. But I did there was one note on here: when is rolling through a stop sign permissible? Never? ? And then you just mentioned driving exams. When I took my driving exam, I was told the first thing he said when we stopped was like, "You didn't stop once during your exam." here's your permit. You did a good job.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, so I think
When I took my driver's exam, I knew that not stopping at any red was an immediate fail. So I stopped at every single stupid stop sign. But there are some stop signs that I literally do not stop for. I will slow down, check, but it's such a low traffic, and more importantly, there's some red lights that I don't stop for because they're ridiculous. They're in places where they shouldn't be. There's no traffic in any direction for quite a ways. If I were to stop at that red stop sign, first of all, I am burning the total amount of useful human productive minutes in the world, which is a sin by itself, by sitting in that car instead of doing something fun or productive, whatever. I'm also increasing air pollution by burning gasoline unnecessarily sitting at that red light. There are some red lights that one should run if one is a moral person.
Are you talking that one on Yosemite that is for a bike lane that's on a timer? Or excuse me, on a path lane that's on a timer.
Oh
So
my god.
If you're heading towards Bellevue, because it's not even another lane of traffic, it's for a bike lane that doesn't turn into a bike lane on this side of the road, on the west side. So it's just for like people, I guess, riding or walking across to a bike path over there, but it's on a timer.
That's
and
ridiculous.
So, yeah,
that's not the one I was talking about.
Because that's one that I've thought of running before. I guess I'm never in that much of a rush, but I totally get the impulse because I'm sitting there. I guess I never want to risk the ticket, but for me, I'm sitting at this light and knowing that I'm not stopped for anybody, and that we're all stopping here at this line going both ways, and there's no cross traffic because it's not another street. Mm-hmm. And why is it on a fucking timer? Put it on a button and then stop traffic for the one asshole who wants to stop traffic to cross the street. That's fine. Everyone needs to cross, but it's hard not to hate the person that stops traffic but everyone's got to get somewhere. Anyway, it was funny. I don't think I must not have encountered a go through a red light or something during my test. 'Cause I didn't run a red light. What I did is I guess came to rolling stops for my right turns at red lights and then stop signs. Okay. So I just distinctly remember that was the thing. That was the first thing you said was you didn't stop once.
And then gave you the permit.
Yep.
Well,
it's hard not to pass, I guess.
Yeah. My mom taught me the wrong way to parallel park.
Oh.
And so I did that during the exam, and the guy's like, all right, pull out and then do it again, but do it this way. And then I was able to do it correctly, and he was like, all right, do it that way from now on.
That's hilarious.
Is the way your mom taught you just as effective?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's the wrong way to... I don't know what she was thinking.
Ah.
I've got one here from Mordina Mail, but it's too long for me to read because you guys hear how I read things. So I want someone else to read it. But it was on the censorship episode that we did.
I got it. Mordina says, y'all seem to agree that yelling fire in a crowded theater should be punishable. On that level, you all agree that censorship has its uses. In that particular case, the harm of the speech is immediate and obvious. Other kinds of speech cause less obvious, less causally direct, or less immediate harm. So the true question isn't, should censorship be permitted? Should Patreon discriminate among its clients based on the contents of their speech? Instead, it's, what kind of speech should be considered sufficiently harmful that it is censored and or otherwise disincentivized? Under basic consequentialism, I think we can all agree that there's an ethical imperative to stop someone who's calling for violence against a specific individual or group. There's probably an ethical imperative to stop someone who seems to be fomenting a mass panic. The norm of shutting down speech which directly causes harm is actually a good one. The problem, again, is what kind of speech constitutes harm? When that becomes a politicized question, and I'm not sure I trust the executives of tech companies to make those calls in a sufficiently Jean-Luc Picard fashion.
Also, call back to Jean-Luc Picard because I've been listening to We've Got Worm, their excellent podcast that Matt / Mordina Mail and Scott Daly do, and they were talking about they were trying to like basically figure out whether or not the protagonist was doing the right or wrong thing, and then Matt came back the next episode and he's like, you know what, I was thinking about this. I feel like the way to think about this would be WWJPD, or yeah, what would JLPD? Mm-hmm. What would Jean-Luc Picard do? And the answer is like, never leave a man behind, never sacrifice anybody, all that, the heroic things. And so I like the shout out to Jean-Luc here. And
I've heard that on more than one occasion. I think honestly Jean-Luc Picard is sort of the Jesus of the modern day. Everyone, if they modeled their actions on what Jean-Luc Picard would do, we'd be living in a near ideal society.
That extends to Patrick Stewart as a person.
Oh, I don't know enough about Patrick Stewart.
He seems to be an outstanding dude.
Okay. I also am really worried about ever drawing that sort of mythological inspiration from a real person, because real people have real problems, whereas mythological figures like Jean-Luc Picard can be perfect because they aren't real people.
But we can try to be as close to perfect as we can.
Yeah, but maybe Patrick Stewart lost his temper once and yelled at his kid or something,
He wasn't doing what Jean-Luc Picard would have done.
Right, which is why what would Jean-Luc Picard do, not what would Patrick Stewart do.
Sure.
I would rather base my, I would rather idealize a real person who is a really good person. Because, like, if you have as your role model someone who doesn't actually exist, then they're going to be perfect, and humans aren't perfect. I would rather watch somebody who makes mistakes and then see how they recover from those mistakes, I think.
Yeah, okay, that's also useful.
Yeah.
I mean, the real problem with that is that in 100 years or so, you'll find out that this real person, like, ate meat or did something, I don't know, talked to children, which apparently damages them psychologically. Whatever we find out in 100 years is a thing you can't do because it's evil that we all do today.
Yeah.
Or even something that like was frowned upon at the time but was still awesome. Like Martin Luther King Jr. was apparently kind of womanizer and cheated on his wife and stuff. Like, that sucks. Not a cool thing to do, bro. But doesn't mean he's not a super inspiring dude. Mm-hmm. Similar to, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard Gandhi didn't like black people.
Yeah, so, Gandhi had a bunch of problematic things about him, apparently.
Yeah, and I think I never liked the word problematic. Not an attack, but
it's gotten very politicized.
I kind of used it a little tongue-in-cheek.
No, yeah, but it was just because it sounds like this vague sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, so he's got his things, but that doesn't mean that. Then again, I'm not a fan of nonviolence. Don't get me wrong. I'm the opposite of a fan of violence in real life. But
says Steven just before heading off to his fight club.
Right.
Yeah, but Malcolm X was important too.
Yeah, well, I think my thing with nonviolence is the standard thing of like, any asshole with a machete can come through and take out a whole town of nonviolent resistors, right?
Not if they dogpile the person.
That's violent, isn't it?
Not if you don't hurt them. I don't know. Yeah, like that. Then
I guess it depends on what form of nonviolence takes. If you're supposed to just lay down and take it, a la Mahatma Gandhi, then like you're. Then again, he did it in a smart way. He said, do it in front of cameras. And, he did this in a way that broadcast these atrocities to the world, which is sort of the point.
I think a lot of the nonviolent activists actually were doing it strategically like that.
That's good. I think there's a faction of people in the Wheel of Time book series that they are strictly nonviolent and in sort of like the idealized Gandhi way. But to the point that it's stupid. There's literally monsters running around, like orcs, and so they don't defend themselves against the Wheel of Time's version of orcs, which is ridiculous.
Well, you don't
because the orcs.
You don't even need to go as far as orcs. I mean, even in the real world, there's monsters like bears and wolves, which you would have to defend yourself against.
I can't remember what their version is on bears and wolves. I can't remember if they're vegetarians or not, but hypothetically they could have been. And sure, then yeah, that's how dumb is that? I mean,
yeah, does that extend to like living things too? Like if a rock is rolling towards you, do you have to stand there and take it too, or can you smash the rock? Like,
I'm pretty sure anything without sentience is fine.
What about animals?
I don't know.
That's the good question.
How smart does the animal have to be before you would fight back? Like, I'm just being like an asshole. Let's go on.
Can you take antibiotics?
Right.
Yeah. Can you?
That seems to be like the bottom level of where it's okay to resist. But to get back to Mordina Mail's question here, speaking of which, Mordina Mail is a amalgamation of two words of the ancient language in Wheel of Time. So
I think this is the third time you've mentioned it.
Yeah, but because the running joke on We've Got Ward is that Scott will plug his Twitter handle and then fail to pronounce Matt's in a different way every week. So it's funny, sort of an inside joke, but at least two people on the inside get it. So. So I thought it was just a fun question that I don't know if we have a quick answer to, because we did talk about a bit, like what was his name? Alex Jones saying send letters to these people, the actors who pretended to have kids that got shot at this fake shooting or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's not. I think you even conceded that was like that's just harassment, and so yeah, take them off for that, right?
Yeah.
But then I guess it's weird because when we were talking about like the punching Nazis thing, if it's just someone talking about a peaceful reclamation of white culture or something, they could go up there and make all the right noises that sound perfectly nonviolent, but there's no such thing as what amounts to a peaceful genocide, right?
Which is what you would say. You would respond with, there's no such thing, here's why that's ridiculous, and...
Yeah, but then they could still make the same complaints about, like, I was deplatformed just for expressing my desire to not be multicultural. Multicultural-fied?
I mean, he's not deplatformed if you responded to him, right? That was just you saying things on your platform.
Right, but what if they took him off Patreon? I don't know what Richard Spencer, how he makes his living, but if he was a podcaster or something and that this was his message, is that cool to kick him off for being like that? It's hard to say. If the president gets up there and makes noises about not wanting to, concede our way of life or this insidious threat of the others, whether it's the Mexicans or the Muslims or the whatever, and then somebody runs and shoots up a synagogue and says the exact same things about the Jews he just massacred, like, one's just saying, oh, we don't want to, we feel threatened or something, but then it seems like the very natural extension to feeling threatened is to act out against it, right?
I actually think if someone did do that, it would be valuable to point out their speech and say, this is this is what he said. This is where thinking and saying these sorts of things will get you. It'll turn you into a homicidal maniac.
This did happen. I
Yeah,
was talking about the
exactly.
shooting at the
So-
synagogue in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know about it. And that's what you can say to people who are like, no, I'm for the peaceful reclamation of America for the white people. You're like, people who listen to what you say go and shoot up synagogues. They quoted you in their tweet just before they did it.
And therefore we're taking off Twitter? Is that being okay?
No, not therefore
No,
taking
but-
off your Twitter. That is helping people see why you don't want to say and think those things, because it drives you into becoming a homicidal person that kills the innocent before he kills himself or has the police cut him down.
I think the person who says those things and inspires those maniacs is fully aware of what they're doing, and they're doing it on purpose. And so they're not going to be dissuaded by the fact that people are actually running with what they're saying.
Okay.
They'll make noises about, oh, they shouldn't have done that. That's not what I meant. Or maybe they mean it, but for my thought experiment, whatever, pretending that they're not.
I see. You think he's secretly happy because that'll make people of that minority scared to live in this country and move away.
That sounds like the kind of thing that sounds super plausible.
Yeah.
And if it's not plausible for a real person, which I think it is, then it's plausible for a fake person for the sake of argument.
Right.
And then at that point, I think that's sort of like, is that sufficiently harmful to say, all right, cool, fuck you, we're taking away your access on our platform? It's slippery, and I didn't bring this. I didn't want to talk about Martin Email's submission because I thought it was an easy one. I thought it was just kind of fun.
Yeah.
Now, this is a good way to reframe that discussion we had, too. Like, we were pointing out a bunch of specific examples about this would be bad and should be punishable. This seems fine, but, like, yeah, if you can make rules about what kind of speech should be banned and versus not. But, yeah, then, I don't know, you get into all the stuff that you guys were just talking about. Like, there's ways that you could have plausible deniability.
Yeah, it gets weird.
I think at some point you would be able, once they've said enough things, to make a case that they are complicit in it.
Yeah, that would be, like, evidence against them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking specifically, Eliezer has on more than one occasion said, don't ever, ever do any violence to anyone based on something they've said. That argument always gets counter-argument, never gets a bullet. So in everything I've ever seen of him, he's been very explicit about don't do bad things like shooting up places, don't ever enact violence against people, and I don't think you could ever make a case that he is complicit in something like that. Whereas I'm pretty sure someone like Richard Spencer, you wouldn't have to dig very far at all to see him saying things like, yeah, you know, I'm kind of glad they're scared now. I hope that continues. And at that point, you could probably not actually in our society, but ideally, you could take someone to court and say you are threatening people.
Yeah, you're inciting violence.
Yeah, you're inciting violence.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be like a bunch of rules that you would have to write ahead of time, and then you could judge each individual, like, you know, thing that a person says. You'd have to actually look at the history of what they've been saying and then what their cause is.
Yeah.
So, but that's probably like a more sensible way to do this, actually.
Yeah, I think being able to make a good case that someone is actually inciting violence is what we would need. Although I do agree that I don't think that executives of companies or the PR departments of companies are good at making those decisions. I think that they're just in it for whatever will make them look the best to the majority of their user base.
Yeah.
Like, I could easily see someone kicking off Liam Neeson for being like, oh, that racist asshole, we don't want him on our platform.
Sure.
Right after he said that.
But like you said, they've got to make a reasonable case that this person was like this, right?
I mean, under a due process system, yes. But if right now,
he
Patreon or Twitter,
confessed.
no, they wouldn't have to. They'd be like, oh, he said this thing. He's out of here. We have all these people calling for his blood.
Yeah, and he confessed to doing something. If that were a court, if you went and confessed to doing a crime, like...
He confessed to wanting to commit a crime.
Yeah.
But that's not illegal yet, is it?
No, but talking about... Yeah, I don't know. That's not illegal, but it might get him banned from a platform for, like, doing wrong speech.
In his specific case, he wasn't saying, and this was awesome, go, you know, I hope people take this message and go forth and beat people up.
Right. No system of due process would ever find him guilty.
I think even, like, a reasonable public process shouldn't either, right? Like, because again, his message, you know, due process might not find Richard Spencer guilty, which is fine. Due process should be limited that way, probably, and you know, whatever. I'm not a lawyer, but it should be. It's hard to get somebody convicted of a crime. That should be the case. But with Liam Neeson's thing, he couldn't have been. I can't think of a way it could possibly have been better, given that he once thought bad things for a few weeks in his youth, in the middle of, you know, the IRA car bombing Ireland 40 years ago. Like, I don't know, man. Who in 60 years hasn't had a bad thought, right? Mm-hmm. There was a great thing, I saw it on, might have been on, not Wholesome Memes, it was not wholesome enough for Wholesome Memes, but some nice subreddit that was like...
Decent memes.
Yeah.
We're okay memes.
But it was just like it was a capture of a tweet that was like, progress happens, people change. 15 years ago, I was lightly transphobic, I was passively sexist, like just because you grow up with ideas, then you overcome them. And I was raised in an environment that had me instill some bad ideas, and I shook them off. But God forbid if I had a podcast 20 years, or what, how old am I? 10, 20, 15 years ago? Who cares? And I had said some of these things back then, right? And I wasn't like, I didn't have the power, or just, you know, was never in it enough to advocate for whatever. But people grow and change. I don't know what I'm trying to get at here, other than I think I've gotten distracted, because you weren't drawing an equivalency. You were trying to, I think, point out how muddy the line is, because whatever Richard Spencer falls under, Liam Neeson might fall under it too. But I can't see them as more different.
No, I agree that I absolutely agree with you 100%. The way that the mob treats the two of them is almost identical.
Yeah, totally.
And for that reason, since the social media PR departments respond to the mob, I don't think they are a good arbiter of this sort of thing.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think so. You're saying censorship isn't the way to go from the point of view of the platform owner,
right?
Because they're going to do whatever the mob wants, because the mob uses their platform the most. Mm-hmm. All right, but the rational, the sensible,
there are some things
people
that are actually that should be stopped from being spread.
Fair enough.
Such as direct incitement to violence. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are things that shouldn't be stopped from being said.
Yeah.
Cool.
Even if they're shitty things, if they're not hurting anyone.
I mean, even if they are hurting
deliberately,
people, like saying racist things does hurt people.
Yeah,
and yet I still think it should
physically
be okay to say that. Oh, okay, yeah.
Or, like hurting people's feelings shouldn't be illegal, unless it's like a harassment campaign or something.
Interesting side note, Morden Mail brought up the standard example of we all agree that yelling fire in a crowded theater should be punishable, which I'm sure we all do. But
assuming the theater isn't on fire.
Yes.
Yeah. I had to make that
apparently this was a thing that happened a lot, where there were bad theater fires and just hundreds would die, either in the fire or in the stampede to get out. Anyways, this came from a Supreme Court case where a justice pointed this out, that that should be punishable. The Supreme Court case in question was a man being tried for saying that the draft in World War I should not be a thing, that the draft was unconscionable, and we should move away from a draft system. And they sent him to jail because he said, I have freedom of speech, I can say this thing. And they're like, this is the equivalent of yelling fire in a crowded theater, you're going to jail. So
that's a slimy way to employ that sort of reasoning, isn't it?
I think we all think so nowadays. Yeah. It really shows you how much society has changed and how good arguments can be used in bad causes.
Yeah, that's a danger. I mean, I think...
Because we did eventually get rid of the draft because we do think it's unconscionable. I
mean, that's something that, like you said, using good arguments for bad reasons is something that I think every aspiring rationalist tries not to do. That's sort of like the inverse of that Dan Dennett thing I've repeated over and over of like bad arguments for positions I agree with. Mm-hmm. It's like good arguments for positions I hate. But that's different, because you can't quite do that, because that's not really, I mean, I guess now in today's context, that's not the same. The
government decided that he was directly endangering people's lives by saying that people shouldn't be pressed into the military. He was threatening the security of the nation by doing this, which is as bad as yelling fire in a crowded theater.
It's interesting. In the context of World War I, they make a somewhat compelling point.
World War I wasn't the same as World War II.
No, but I think, and I guess I'm not a historian, but just in the context of like, we need bodies. The world wasn't at risk because we didn't have nukes yet, but whatever. Our way of life might have been something like that, right?
I don't think we had
lives,
to get involved.
I'm not a historian, so I'm speaking up my ass. But I could see a context in which that thing kind of is defensible. Like, look, you can't be making these really good points about how people shouldn't be joining because we need them to. So you need to shut the fuck up, or we're going to make you shut up. I can imagine a world in which that is a good argument to make. Not saying that our world is it.
In my world, I would say if you really think the war is both this important and this just, you should make a counter-argument to that effect so that people will agree that the draft is a good thing, as opposed to silencing me and throwing me in jail for talking.
Yeah, like appeal to patriotism instead of appeal to like, here's some facts about future predictions.
but we don't have the time
Yeah.
during the war to engage you in your platform and your discourse. We're currently fighting.
We need to throw more bodies into this
Exactly.
clusterfuck.
Yeah. War is weird. Glad the draft is gone. Although I did get and subsequently throw away without opening my, like, you've been enrolled in the whatever you call
Selective
it.
service?
Selective service, yeah. When I think came to me right on, like, the week that I turned 18 too.
We are going to cut this from the podcast because that is technically illegal.
I just got the letter saying I was enrolled.
How did you get enrolled?
Because I was a guy and I turned 18.
They just sent it to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
they just sent me a thing that, yeah, you're in this. If we call it draft, we might call you.
When I turned 18, they had a whole bunch of things at our high school saying, all right, everybody's got to sign up for this now.
Interesting. Maybe they automated it. I don't really know.
Yeah, maybe they
Or
have.
maybe because I didn't read it, I don't really know what it said. But my brother opened his and I skimmed his. So
Okay, and it just said you're in now.
I'm pretty sure. But now that you've pointed this out, I might have been wrong. Maybe it said you need to call us and sign up, but no one ever came by to my house to arrest me. So
Well, it's absolutely unenforced. No one really cares.
All right.
It's been unenforced for decades.
Well, I mean, you can leave that in or out. We talked about drug use before too. So although one,
That's true.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And
At
this
the end of the
is there's more people in jail for drugs than the 0 people that have been hurt by this thing. We should get to the less wrong stuff and get to the rest of the feedback
I was just
later.
going to say that, yeah. All right, we've got almost a couple hours worth of feedback.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to move on to...
We have more feedback, which we will get to later.
There's always more feedback.
Maybe next episode. Maybe we'll do an episode of something else and then get back to feedback. But yeah, there's more. We're sorry we didn't get to more.
But thanks for having conversations on stuff. It's nice. I already saw some stuff today on GPT-2 on the subreddit, so...
Yeah, there was a lot, actually.
Yeah, it's exciting. By all means, go forth and continue saying stuff and talk with each other and us, and we're happy to engage as often as we can, so...
Heck yeah. If you can find other people in your town to talk with, that is even better.
And if you can't, there's a subreddit, so...
Exactly. Alrighty, on to our less wrong posts.
All right. So the previous ones were kind of setting up, like, what's a bias?
You should tell our listeners what we're doing that we hadn't mentioned before. 3 instead of 2.
Oh, yes. We are doing 3... I think I put this in the show notes. I can't remember. We're doing 3...
Sequences posts.
Thank you. 3 sequences posts this episode, because the second 2 are both pretty short, and the third one's really short, and it really fits in with the second one. My 1,000-foot view of all 3 of these is that, and the last couple, is that Yudkowsky is just setting up, like, what a bias is. What are biases, and then in the context of what he's talking about. You know, it's like not math, not statistics, not analysis, where he's moving into talking about cognitive biases, and because he's going to spend the next 2 years writing about them. So I think he wants to make it dead clear what he's on about. So with that in mind, the first post we're talking about is useful statistical biases, which is the opposite of what we talked about in the last post. Who's our statistician who wants to talk about this one?
None of us.
I think you.
So, Yudkowsky says that bias in humans means a particular tendency, trend, inclination, feeling, or opinion, especially one that is preconceived or unreasoned. And then says bias in statistics means a systematic as opposed to a random distortion of a statistic as a result of a sampling procedure. So those are 2 different meanings of the word bias, and I think that this is kind of just tackling the fact that people confuse the one word for the other when they start talking about, like, tackling biases or how we can get rid of biases.
He points out that sometimes biases in statistical analysis are useful for simplifying and removing noise from things, which makes your estimate ultimately slightly less accurate, but on the other hand also reduces crazy variances. If one particular subvariable has large swings, it'll possibly move your data more than you want it to move based on that one little thing, and so you'll underweight it a little bit, which is a statistical bias, which also makes things easier to model and to predict. And so he said sometimes they can be useful in statistical modeling. And gave a bunch of math to it too, which it's hard to get into on the podcast, especially with 3 non-math people.
Yeah, and for me, my eyes glaze over at that, because I take the message and I'll take his word for it on the numbers. Like, yes, it's lazy, but it's also, I don't know. I feel like if he was pulling the numbers out of his ass, somebody would have called him out by now, and I'm pretty sure that that's not what was going on. So, yeah, I think he's a math nerd. That's his, like, to him, that's easy. That's probably easier than talking in English, and he's good at talking in English. So, I don't have much to say about it other than he's laying out that there are cases, where statistical biases can be useful in the specific context of statistics.
Yeah, it's accepted because you can't get precise data. You can't measure the bias's directions and magnitude, otherwise you'd subtract it out. So you'd try to get rid of bias in statistics too if you were able to. With cognitive bias, you do have some idea of the direction of your error, and the whole point of rationality is the attempt to subtract that out. That's probably all we need to say about that.
Yep. Moving on to
Error of crowds.
The Error of Crowds. So this one is a direct response to The Wisdom of Crowds, which is a really fascinating book. Have you guys read it before? Or do you know about it, I guess?
I know
'Cause
about it.
I haven't read it either.
Yeah.
Basically, it gives a whole bunch of examples about places where everyone was trying to figure out something or guess something, and every single person was individually wrong, some more than others. But when you averaged all of their guesses, I guess, for lack of a better word, together, the average was startlingly close. Like in a surprising way. In one case, they asked a whole bunch of people who were not experts in the subject, but who had some knowledge in the subject about where I believe it was a Russian sub went down. Because no one really knows where it went, but they know where there was last contact with it and what the sea currents were. And there have been some efforts to find it before. And everyone was off by quite a bit. But the surprising thing is, if you averaged what everybody said, the actual location was really close to that average guess, whereas everyone individually was off quite a bit. And the explanation was that most likely everyone had some little piece of data and a whole bunch of noise that they thought but were wrong about. And when you took everybody's guesses, everything that they were right about all kind of pointed in the same direction. Everything that they were wrong about kind of pointed randomly and all canceled each other out in the wash. So you just sort of get the useful information left in the end.
This sounds like a very humbling and inspiring message that we should be more modest and just take in everyone's opinions and then amalgamate on the truth. Is that the way I should take this, Enyas?
That is exactly how you should take it, Stephen. No, we at the very top of the post, he links back to an old Overcoming Bias post where the author says, I've kind of decided that I'm just going to take the average human population position on everything because I'm pretty sure I cannot do better than the average of everyone.
Therefore, God is real?
You know, right?
Yeah.
And if he was around a few hundred years ago, therefore slavery is okay, etc., etc. Yeah, which on the one hand kind of strikes you as dumb, but on the other hand, if you take this logic far enough, it's like hard to argue with him.
We've got a sign on it's kind of a long little thing. It's on this cool scroll thing that my fiance got and we put by the front door of our home. It's a long quote, but the end thing is, and it uses the word crazy in a way that today wouldn't be considered acceptable, but it's an old quote. And it's like the crazy ones are the ones who are willing to like go out on a limb and they're the only ones who make change and make progress. And this modesty argument here sounds like a great argument against that. Copernicus is crazy sort of thing, right?
It looked like you were trying to say something too.
Actually, I just lost my train of thought because I was thinking about that.
Okay.
I got sidetracked thinking about the sign being like, crazy people are the ones who make change, and you were saying that was not a accepted use of that word, but I feel like the people who are the people that make change tend to be non-neurotypical, so in a way it's still kind of correct.
There was a guy who wrote a book, and he was on Julia Gillow's podcast. It wasn't about this controversy, it was about the actual content of the book, which I can't remember the actual name of, which tells something about it. The original name was How to Think Like a Crazy Philosopher. And there was enough pushback against that's
ableist language,
and that's putting down people with mental illness and stuff. And I think it's very clear from the message of how to think a crazy philosopher. I get exactly what he's trying to say, and I feel like no one can say in good faith that they didn't get what he was saying. It was just whatever Twitter mob. Not to say that there's not a mean way to use the word crazy, but that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's not using it as a pejorative.
I don't think so either. If anything, it was you want to think like a crazy philosopher, not you want to have manic depression, right? So, anyway, that's what I was getting at with the crazy on there being not necessarily something everyone would be on board with.
It's interesting, the words that become taboo over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in 10 years, somebody will be Twitter mobbed for using the word crazy in a tweet in 2019, right? So
I don't think it'll take 10 years. I'm pretty sure it'll be next year.
Anyway, in the Error of Crowds, Yudkowsky talks about prediction diversity, which is the squared error of the collective predicting, equaling the average squared error minus the predictive diversity, meaning the more diversity in a group, the smaller the error of the crowd. Then he asks, why should the bias variance decomposition be relevant to modesty? Because it seems to show the error of averaging all the estimates together is lower than the typical error of the individual estimate. But then he goes to say that you shouldn't be more modest and compromise a little based on this, because predictive bias assumes that actors aren't predicting like Bayesians. A quote, as Einstein put it, insofar as the expressions of mathematics refer to reality, they're not certain, And insofar as they are certain, they don't refer to reality.
Hey, you've got to do it in a really offensive German accent.
Oh.
No, that's fine.
Do you want to do
I
that?
won't make you do it. No. Whenever I read an Einstein quote, I hear it kind of in his voice, or like the way that I've heard his voice portrayed.
Anyway, the real modesty argument, Omen's agreement theorem, or Aumann, has preconditions. AET depends on agents computing their beliefs in a particular way. AAT's conclusions can be false in any particular case if the agents don't reason as Bayesians. And then he goes to this example about the students and the math problem. Does somebody else want to go?
Sure. So he uses a lot of math here, and I kind of stopped following it, and I found that this week and last week, it's really been useful for me to read the post, then put it aside, and just do something else for an hour or two, and then come back and read it again. And it seems to have like filtered in or something, or maybe I got past the initial intimidation of the math. But when I came back and read it a second time, it worked better for me.
Yeah, that's how like you solve hard math problems. A lot of it is actually done in what was it? There's a terminology for this, and I'm not having a good brain day.
Subconscious.
Shower
yeah,
thought.
Basically the subconscious. There was
I called it shower thoughts.
I guess. Oh, it's a diffuse mode.
Okay.
There's like focused mode and diffuse mode, and apparently you kind of like process stuff with the front of your brain. I'm not even sure if it's actually like the prefrontal cortex or whatever, but like there's a part of your brain that's like focused on like concentrating on something and working on it, and it gets tired quickly. But then there's like this background part of your brain that is able to work on things and chew on them for much longer.
I had been banging my head on a programming problem this afternoon for like an hour, and finally like, all right, fine, I'm gonna get up and get some water and take a break. Less than 5 minutes, I'm away. I'm like, wait, I should try this, and I got it fixed.
Nice.
I think it's that kind of thing. And
Yeah, that kind of thing happens all the time. That's like how your brain works.
just give it a chance to get away from that stuff.
That's why you have ideas and inspiration through dreams sometimes too. Kind of.
Yeah.
Dreams are weird, actually.
But I see what you're saying. It's certainly maybe just a good night's sleep, and then you come back to it on a fresh brain, but one that you didn't know was exercising all night in weird ways, and then boom, thoughts.
So what I got out of this after I got past all the math was that Eliezer really dislikes this whole wisdom of the crowds thing, and thinks that, well, he said in the previous post that he suspects these might be cherry-picked examples, and this isn't as useful as they were claiming in the book, but he uses math to reduce this to an abductio ad absurdum, which I think wasn't really needed, because in the very top of the post, he linked to that guy who said, I'm going to take the average of all human opinions on everything, in all seriousness. And Steve and me were both like, aha, well, that shows how ridiculous this is. That was our reducto right there. We didn't need all the math. But he goes and he posits this.
I think he's proving his case with numbers.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah,
He went and posits this case where it's a very specific case with a math problem and a classroom, and the math problem has like a gotcha in it. So all the students will get the wrong answer, but they'll all get it in one direction, but they don't know which direction it's in. And the score that the teacher will give them is based on the square root of their error, which means that with all this piled on top of each other, means that if the students have the option to either talk with each other about the problem and try to figure things out and get a better answer, or to plug their ears while everyone else is talking so that they can't hear anything and just go with a random answer, such as their own, that they're better off plugging their ears. Because in all the other examples given, once everyone pooled everything, pooled their data, pooled their guesses, they came up with something better. In this case, if they all did that, they would come up with something worse, since the score was based on the square root of the difference. Anyway, it's a bunch of complicated math stuff, but Eliezer's reductio here is that here is a specific situation where increasing your knowledge of something will also make you worse off. So the best thing you can do is not get more knowledge and go with the dumber answer that you had. And I see how he did that with math, and I can see how if you've proven that in one case this is absolutely absurd, you have just proven that this is not a rule that always holds. But I didn't really need that, and it was such a fringe edge case that it also really didn't do much for me. I think it's much more compelling to people who are high into math and would understand this on a more intuitive level, why it's so breaky. Whereas for me, just that top blog post was more impactful than obviously it was for Eliezer.
Yeah, I'm not super mathy, but I actually wasn't like really convinced until I got to the math problem part.
Oh, really?
I think then that's why he put it in there.
Yeah.
I think you're more mathy than you give yourself credit for. if it landed for you, that's the way it was intended. Maybe he wasn't just flexing his math.
I actually summarized this article as Yudkowsky's annoyed by some commonly held notions of prediction diversity and decides to destroy it with math. You know, at the end, he does point out that he thinks the students should actually talk to each other, but then goes on to say that says something more positive about the value of conversation and not about averaging answers. I think it just annoys him that, like, this idea of, oh, well, we should always average answers, like, that's not how you would solve a math problem. That's not how you should solve problems of reality either, because you might come across one of these kinds of cases where there is some kind of gotcha in reality, like the evidence does all lean in a weird direction for some reason. You want to actually be calibrating as, like, best as you can. He's not just going off of a heuristic, like, well, if we just average everybody's answers, then it seems to do good.
He's spent a number of posts now kind of laying the groundwork for sometimes the massive people are wrong and you have to be revolutionary and think in weird ways.
Yeah, and that's going to be kind of a recurring theme over all those sequences. So, next one?
Yeah.
All right, next one's short, and it's just sort of another example or another framing of the previous post. That's why I wanted to lump it into this one.
Yeah, can I summarize this one?
Yeah, please.
And then we can do our, like, experiment.
Yeah.
See if I can do a short version. In this article, Yudkowsky...
This one was called The Majority is Always Wrong.
The Majority is Always Wrong, which was about kind of pondering the anti-majoritarian effects, by which he means instances where the most popular idea or tool is not actually the best idea or tool. So, like, of course he noticed it. He was talking to a coworker about probability and thought that it was really odd that frequentism, which is the predominant view in mainstream statistics, is the worst of the three major alternatives. He brings up another example where the Dvorak, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's a keyword structure, which is seemingly easier on the fingers than the ones that we all, like the standard one we use, the QWERTY.
Dvorak was specifically designed so that the keys that are used most in the English language are directly under your fingers, and the less often a key is used, the further away it is, as opposed to the QWERTY keyboard where only one of the vowels is directly under your fingers, which is ridiculous. And you have to reach like a madman for some of these letters that are used a ton, whereas you barely have to reach at all for use Q, which whoever uses Q, right?
Yeah, he then asserts, in any case where you've got, one, a popularity effect, it's easier to use something other people are using, and two, a more dominant alternative, plus a few small niche alternatives, then the most dominant alternative will probably be the worst of the lot, or at least strictly superior to none of the others. And then he asks the commenters to think of counterexamples.
He gave the example of Macs and PCs, which this was back in the day. Younger listeners will have to remember that. PCs were really popular and were used by a ton of people. Macs were kind of a niche that not too many people used. And there was an old saying that Mac users had that saying, if Macs really were worse than Windows PCs, no one would use them. The point being that there is a big popular thing that everyone uses, and there's a small thing which only some people use. There's a lot of pressure to use the thing that everyone uses due to network effects. Everyone is using Windows, everyone is using Word and Excel, so you can transfer files between those easily. So the popular thing has a lot of staying power. If there is a smaller group that is worse, no one is going to use that because in addition to not having the popularity drive behind it, it's actually worse. It would have to be better than the popular thing for anyone to use it at all.
And just like now, Macs are always more expensive.
Right.
So like, if you're going to shell out 3 times the cost for a computer that's also worse, then they'd all be idiots. And so they're kind of just observing that if it was worse and more expensive and didn't have all these benefits, nobody would be doing it. That proves that there's something there. What else could explain it? You know, some weird hipsterism. I guess people like people listening to records.
Kind of. Robin Hanson had a pretty good answer to that in the comments. He said that less popular choices must have advantages to compensate for their unpopularity, but it doesn't mean that they're better. Many small religious sects are bound together stronger for being persecuted minorities, and that bond may well be the advantage that they seek. And you can probably think of more examples in that vein.
Yeah.
Where something being small and niche, like that kind of hipsterism.
Yeah, that was actually a good intuition pump. I didn't read the comments. That would have been giving me something to think about. Because, yeah, I mean, I think the records thing might be something to run with a little bit there. Because, yeah, then at the end he challenges people to think of their own examples. And I threw out some jokey ones and one serious one. But
what was the serious one?
I think Ford versus, like, Honda and Subaru.
Is Ford more popular?
I don't know which is more popular. I guess I should have looked that up, or at least had some idea before I think about it. I just know that people buy Fords, people buy Hondas. Since the cost is roughly about equal, to me it's a no-brainer. I don't know a ton about cars, but I've worked on some of several kinds, and I've just seen how long they last. And my understanding, I haven't lived long enough to drive a lot of cars to the grave, but if your Ford is going 150,000 miles, that's like really good. If your Honda makes it to 300,000, that's really good. It's like you're getting twice as long of life out of this car. But yeah, I don't know, people still buy records. But they're not buying it. Well, I guess they're buying it for the signaling value of, yes, I listen to records. Cannonball Jenkins was on and made a joke about that once. He said he was listening to his record. Yes, I listen to records. I'm better than you. But he did
yes,
it.
I am better than you.
Yeah, he did say that, but he was doing it in a nudge, nudge, wink, wink way. But I mean, there's something about the audio quality. I don't think anyone can maintain that like it sounds more like listening to the music in the recording studio. It sounds like listening to a record, and that has this authentic-y feel to it, and it does. So if that's what you're going for, that's not a good example.
There were a lot of comments pointing out that there are a lot of cases where the most popular thing is the best thing.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it would be also sort of tautological, right? Like, of course the best thing is going to win out a lot. So, I don't know. I don't have a great example. I thought we could kind of do this on the fly, but I'm way more tired than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah, I kind of was able to think of examples where somebody might want to buy something because it's cheaper. I don't think that's like maybe what Eliezer was thinking of, but like I would be willing to take a hit on quality for something if it's cheaper to an extent.
Yeah, depending on what it is, for sure.
Or to like reduce decision fatigue.
Yeah.
I think the whole PC Master Race thing is kind of an example of this. PCs really are better for gaming, but they're harder to use and they're a lot more expensive, and
their interface looks crappy.
and that's why everyone buys consoles instead.
I was going to bring up that example too, but I thought that there's conversation there, I guess, because I don't game on a PC because I don't own a PC, but I guess I don't play games enough to invest in a good gaming PC. Like, I could buy a $400 desktop PC and game on that, but then I'm not getting what the real true gamers are getting out of it. You know,
Yeah.
I need a $700 graphics card just to play this at the ultimate res that only the PC can visualize. But that's more just like, I play games for casual fun, and for that purpose, like the controller is comfortable. But you can plug a controller into some of the stuff too.
You can.
And if I was practiced at a keyboard and mouse, I could do that even better.
The controller is specifically what I have issues with. The keyboard and mouse is just such a much better interface system for gaming that there's no comparison. Which is why I don't think it's even that important to have the best gaming card. I mean, you can if you're really into it and you want things to be ultra beautiful, but even like with not the top of the line graphics, I still think PCs are better. I'd rather have a PC that costs more and has worse graphics than my PS4 or my Xbox than to have the Xbox, because I could use a controller. Not a controller, but I could use a mouse and keyboard.
I just value having my video games separate from my like work.
Okay.
That was the reason that I would get a console. So it's in another room and it's got this specific video game time context.
Yeah.
I guess I've been a console gamer since I was a kid. Like, I got my first Sega Genesis when I was under 10 years old, well under, I think. And there wasn't Sonic the Hedgehog on a PC in 1996. Like, I doubt it.
No, I don't think so.
You know, I think it was just sort of, for me, like historical effects, and then cascades through the rest of your life where, you know, you mentioned how like coworkers are like family and stuff. So when I was at the pizzeria, the only reason I got an Xbox One was because all my coworkers were getting it and I wanted to continue playing games with them. Yeah. So since you couldn't play from any other game console or gaming platform, whether PC or whatever, and play the next Call of Duty with your friends, then I had to get the Xbox. Yeah, I don't know. I would have been able to think of examples or make case for like maybe iPhones over Androids or something. But that case is getting flimsier and flimsier over the last few years. So I'm out of steam. I can't think of one.
Yeah.
We should wrap this up then.
Probably about time to do that.
Yeah, we got some stuff covered here.
There's a bunch of other feedback I want to get to, especially Mordina Mail's awesome thing about static time and why things matter. But we should get that next time because it's late.
That was a good one.
That was a really good one.
All right. We'll hit all this stuff at some point. Everyone stay in there.
Yeah.
All right.
Some point soon, even.
Yes. Yeah, skimming through the rest of our notes, we've got, like, you know, video game section, movies, which we talked about plenty, so thanks for bearing with us.
I don't know that we need those sections.
No, I put those in there back in the early days of making notes here. And then Steven Stir the Pot. I feel like we did that with Liam Neeson, so. All right, yep.
Oh, wait, before we thank the Patreon, what is an umlaut and how do I...
Umlaut.
Umlaut.
I think it's the O with the 2 dots over it.
Yeah.
How is that pronounced?
Usually it's pronounced by drawing it out a bit. I've heard the best way to think of it as an American is if the letter was written twice, such as in cooperate. In most other languages, that would be an O with an umlaut over it instead of 2 O's.
I think, yeah, you say it O instead of ah, right?
Then you just draw it out a bit.
Okay.
Like instead of Motley Crue, it'd be Motley Crue.
Fair enough.
Okay.
All right, we got this. So
our patron for this episode is Simon Coder. I did that terribly. There's a little note that says the O in Coder has an umlaut, and I don't know. I tried. It's late. Thank you, Simon.
Yes,
Thanks, Simon.
We're sorry for butchering your name or for not being... Thank you, Simon. Yeah. God, it's late. But we do want to especially take time always out to thank our patrons because it really does help us.
yeah, and
I've said that a lot. I feel like a broken record when we get to this part.
it's hard not to, but the sentiment's the same. It's like, for me, it's, the money's very, very helpful and very thoughtful. For me, it's the fact that people care enough to actually, want to support this financially. And I don't know. I think Enosh joked one time that, it's the unit of caring, and that proves that you guys appreciate it. And that's pretty literal sense that means something. Yeah. So,
And it is... We are reminded of that caring every single time the episode comes out, which is nice because like people don't have the energy to comment every single time or be like, "Hey, great show, guys!" every time. And honestly, we couldn't read all those emails if people did all that.
We can't even get their feedback.
Yeah, right.
and to people who don't have the means or desire to support financially, that's totally cool. There's iTunes, leave a rating and review. This gets more notices in the iTunes algorithm store, whatever. My understanding is that it also wants like a review, not just a rating, for some stupid reason. So
I think either one is good, but
but if
review is even better.
But if you have a chance to write a sentence or anything, just I think that helps its algorithm. But that's not really super important to me.
Just put like good podcast.
Yeah.
And, like a thumbs up emoji, and like that's fine.
Exactly.
That's all we want.
And I think, like I said, that just makes it easier to find, and it shows up better in like trending searches or something. But the other way people find it is by hearing about it. So if you like the show, you can share it, you can talk about it, all that stuff we've talked about. So that's all I've got. Do we do another thing at every episode? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right.
Turns out there was actually one thing we forgot to do. The less wrong posts that we will be reading next week are knowing about biases can hurt people and debiasing as non-self-destruction.
Thanks for bearing with us, everybody. Bearing with me.
We're gonna go to bed.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
The blizzard here has us all tired in hibernating mode. So, all right. Thanks again. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Peace out.
Bye.